The lilies were still white when my daughter-in-law walked into Barbara's bedroom with an appraiser. I was standing in the living room, holding the glass vase against my chest, because water had spilled around the base. Courtney hadn't knocked. She'd used the side door from the driveway, the one our family had used for years. A woman I'd never seen followed her inside. She carried a hard black case and a tablet. Courtney was already talking as she crossed the hall. The bedroom furniture is original. There's jewelry in the top drawer, and the silver is downstairs. The woman stopped when she saw me. Courtney didn't. She kept an inventory notebook in the desk, she said. "That'll save us some time. My name is Howard Walton, and I'm 68 years old. Before I go on, which city are you listening from?" "I live on Tam Street in Staunton, Virginia. Barbara and I bought the house when the kitchen still had brown linoleum and a wall-mounted phone. We replaced almost everything over time, but we never moved. Behind the house is a detached workshop. It's long, low, and built from red brick. I worked there as a cabinet maker for most of my adult life. My son Jonathan works there now, along with 2 employees who come and go, depending on their orders." The woman with the black case looked from Courtney to me. "Mr. Walton?" "Yes. I'm Michelle Torres. I'm a certified personal property appraiser." She held out her hand, then seemed to think better of it because I was still holding the lilies. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said. "Thank you." Courtney opened Barbara's desk. She didn't ask where the notebook was. She went straight to the lower drawer where Barbara kept it. That bothered me almost as much as the appraiser. Michelle glanced toward the hallway. "Before we begin, I need to confirm authorization with the owner." Courtney gave a quick little laugh. "He's right here. We're all family." Michelle kept looking at me. I looked down at the lilies. 3 days earlier, they'd stood straight above the rim. Now, 2 blossoms had started curling at the edges. I hadn't invited either woman into my house. I hadn't agreed to sell anything. And until that moment, I hadn't understood how quickly Courtney expected Barbara's place in the world to become empty. To explain how we reached that bedroom, I need to go back a little. Jonathan and Courtney started their custom cabinet company in 2012, the same year they married. Jonathan was 26 then. Courtney was 24. He knew wood. She knew schedules, invoices, and customers. They were good together at first. Jonathan could spend an hour adjusting a drawer front by the width of a pencil line. Courtney could walk into a half-finished kitchen, shake hands with a nervous homeowner, and leave with a signed change order. Their first shop was an old garage on the edge of town. The roof leaked over the table saw. The owner raised their rent twice in 3 years. When their dust collector failed, Jonathan called me. "Dad, do you still have the old motor from your system?" "I might." "If you do, could I buy it from you?" I found it under a canvas cover in my workshop. I cleaned the contacts and helped him install it. He tried to hand me $200. I told him to keep it. That became our pattern. In 2018, their landlord told them he was selling the garage. Jonathan came to our house after dinner and sat at the kitchen table. "We just need somewhere for 6 months, he said. Barbara looked at him over her reading glasses. 6 months has a way of growing. Courtney smiled. "We'll be gone before you get tired of us." I had stopped taking large commissions by then. My workshop stood empty most weekdays. It had good power, a loading door, and a finishing room I'd built myself. Letting them use it seemed obvious. I remember Jonathan walking through the shop that first morning. He put his hand on the edge of my old assembly table and said, "I can't believe you're trusting us with this. You're my son." "I know, but still." Courtney was measuring the office wall for shelving. She called out, "We'll pay utilities, of course." They did pay the electric bill. At least, they paid most of it. Barbara insisted we put the arrangement in writing. She said our insurance company needed something clear in case an employee got hurt or a customer damaged a vehicle in the driveway. We sat in my home office with a simple workshop use agreement. It wasn't fancy. It said the company could use the building rent-free on a month-to-month basis. Either side could end the permission with 30 days written notice. When it ended, the company had to leave and return every key. Jonathan signed it. Courtney signed for the company. I signed as the owner. Barbara watched me place it in the locked file cabinet. "You keep that where you can find it," she said. "It's an insurance paper. It's an agreement. There's a difference?" "There will be if everyone forgets it's your building." I kissed the top of her head and told her she worried too much. For the first couple of years, the arrangement worked. Jonathan checked before moving equipment. Courtney asked before bringing clients through the yard. They came inside for coffee. Sometimes Barbara made sandwiches when they had a rushed installation. Then asking became telling. Courtney would text, client meeting at 4. Jonathan would say, "We're leaving the delivery van overnight." If a machine started making a bad sound, I got called before the repair company. At first, I liked being needed. I'd walk out there with my tools, and Jonathan would move aside like he had when he was young. We worked well together when there wasn't much talking involved. Courtney knew how to thank me, too. "You saved us again, Howard. We'd be dead without you. You're the reason this company works." Those words felt good. I won't pretend they didn't. The invitations became less reliable. They'd ask us to dinner after a customer canceled. We'd get called for Sunday lunch while they were already setting the table. Courtney once invited us to an anniversary meal at a restaurant, then handed me the bill because the company card had been declined. I paid it. On the drive home, Barbara sat with both hands around her purse. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "It would have embarrassed Jonathan. He should have been embarrassed. They had a bad month. They have a bad month whenever the check reaches our end of the table." I didn't answer. In the fall of 2025, Barbara found me repairing the belt sander after supper. I had promised her I'd help trim the rosemary before the first hard frost. She stood in the workshop doorway wearing my old canvas coat. "Courtney called?" she asked. Jonathan did. "Of course he did. It'll take 20 minutes. You said that an hour ago." I shut off the work light over the machine. "They have an installation tomorrow, and we have a life today." That landed harder than she intended. I could see it on her face. She came closer and wiped sawdust from my sleeve. "Jonathan loves you," she said. "I know he does." "Then what are we arguing about?" "We're not arguing about whether he loves you." "What then?" "He's learned that loving you and using you can happen at the same time." I started to object, but she raised her hand. "And Courtney turns every favor into something they were always entitled to. You keep waiting for gratitude to prove the arrangement is fair. They're building something. So were we." She looked around the workshop. "You think being useful guarantees you a place with them?" "It doesn't, Howard. It just guarantees they'll call when something breaks." I finished the repair anyway. The next morning, I trimmed the rosemary alone because Barbara's hands were aching. I told myself we'd talk about it later. We did, but never as plainly. Barbara became ill soon after Christmas. At first, we thought it was a stubborn chest infection. Then came tests, appointments, and a hospital room in Charlottesville with a chair that never folded flat. She died in early spring at 66. Jonathan was there during her final afternoon. Courtney wasn't. She said she had to meet a client whose deposit was already late. I don't blame her for not being in the room. Barbara and Courtney had never been especially close. What stayed with me was that Courtney called Jonathan twice while he sat beside his mother. The second time, he stepped into the hall. When he returned, he looked at me and said, "She needs the password for the supplier account." I gave it to him. That was the kind of thing I did. Even then, the days after Barbara died came in pieces. I remember the funeral director's blue tie. I remember signing forms without reading the last lines. I remember opening our closet and seeing Barbara's shoes arranged beneath her dresses. Jonathan offered to help with the funeral arrangements. What that meant was he sat beside me while I made the decisions. "Your mother wanted the smaller chapel," I said. "If that's what she wanted. She wrote down 3 hymns. Whatever you think, Dad. Do you want to read something?" He stared at the carpet. "I don't think I can." Courtney handled practical matters, but only the ones that interested her. At the funeral home, she leaned toward me and asked, "Have you thought about what you're doing with the house?" I thought she meant whether I could bear sleeping there. "I'm going home," I said. "No, I mean long term." Jonathan looked at her. "Courtney, I'm asking because someone has to. It's a lot of property for one person." "The property isn't part of today's arrangements," I said. She sat back. "I'm not trying to upset you." The next morning, she brought folders to my kitchen. One held catering menus. One held information from 2 senior living communities. A yellow sticky note on top said, "Easier options when you're ready." I pushed that folder aside and opened the catering menus. Courtney tapped the other one. "You should at least look. I'm staying here. I didn't say you had to move." "Then why bring it? Because waiting until there's an emergency is how families end up with no choices." Jonathan came through the side door carrying coffee. He saw the folders and stopped. "What's that?" "Just information," Courtney said. He set a cup in front of me. "Maybe not today." She gathered the pamphlets, but she didn't put them back in her bag. She left them on the counter beside Barbara's fruit bowl. I threw them away after they left. That was my first small decision, and it shouldn't have felt important. It did. The memorial was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at our church. On Thursday, Courtney called while I was checking the list of people bringing food. "We should have a family property meeting tomorrow," she said. "A what?" "Just you, me, and Jonathan. We need a full picture before people start making emotional decisions." "What decisions?" "The house, the shop, Barbara's things. Nothing has to happen immediately. Then there's no need to meet tomorrow." She went quiet for a second. "Howard, these conversations get harder when they're delayed. Barbara's memorial is Saturday. I know that. Then we'll discuss nothing before Saturday. I'm trying to protect the family. I heard you. Jonathan's worried about you. Jonathan can tell me that." Her voice changed. "Not much, but enough. The company has commitments tied to the workshop. We can't operate with uncertainty." That was the first time she said what was actually worrying her. Not my meals, not the empty side of my bed, not whether I could manage the house, the workshop. I looked through the kitchen window at the red brick building behind the yard. Their delivery van was parked beside it. Someone had left the loading door open. "I'm not discussing property before Barbara's memorial," I said. "We already have the client preview coming up. You said nothing has to happen immediately. That's not the same thing. It is today." I ended the call. My hand shook afterward, so I set the phone on the table. Then I walked outside, crossed the damp grass, and closed the workshop's loading door myself. The latch stuck near the floor, so I put my shoulder against the door and pushed until it caught. Inside, the shop smelled of maple dust and lacquer thinner. Jonathan stood at the wide belt sander with the cover open. One of the employees had already gone home. The other was sweeping near the finishing room. Jonathan looked over. "Did Courtney call you?" "She called about something else." He glanced at my face, then back at the machine. "Everything okay?" "No." He waited, but he didn't ask again. The belt had drifted against the housing and torn along one edge. I could see black dust around the roller. "You kept running it after it started pulling," I said. "We have panels due tomorrow. That doesn't change what the machine does." "I know. You knew before the belt tore." He rubbed both hands down his apron. "Can you look at it?" I should have said no. The memorial was 2 days away. There were folding chairs to confirm, food to collect, and relatives calling the house. I had a legal pad on the kitchen table with 6 names I still needed to contact. Instead, I set the loading door latch and walked over. Jonathan stepped aside. That movement did something to me. It always had. My son could be 40 years old and running his own company, but when he moved aside at a machine, I became the person who knew what to do. I removed the ruined belt and checked the rollers. The tracking sensor is packed with dust. Can we clean it? We can. That bearing is rough too. How long? If the bearing holds, an hour. And if it doesn't, then you call a technician. He nodded. Okay. Courtney came out of the office carrying a stack of cream-colored envelopes. "You found him," she said to Jonathan. "I came out to close the door," I said. She didn't seem to hear me. "Howard, thank God. We cannot lose tomorrow." I wiped dust from the sensor with a soft brush. "Why not? The Patterson job has already moved twice. Then it shouldn't have been scheduled this week." Her mouth tightened. "The customer doesn't care what week we're having," Jonathan said. "Courtney." "What?" "They don't." I looked at him. "Did you tell them your mother died?" "They sent flowers. Then they know." Courtney shifted the envelopes against her hip. The top one had a green drawing of the workshop on it. I recognized it from the previous year's client preview invitation. "You're doing the preview again?" I asked. "Of course." "When?" 4 weeks from Saturday. That put it just over a month away. No one asked me. "It's the annual preview, Howard. We've held it here 3 years in a row. That doesn't mean you stop asking. We're not changing anything. Same parking plan, same caterer, same hours." She said it like using my property required permission only when she changed the napkins. Jonathan looked at the envelopes. "You already had them printed? I told you that. You said you were working on them. I was. Now they're done." She handed him one. Across the front, under the company name, it said, "An evening at the Walton workshop." The address was mine. Jonathan looked toward me. "Dad, is that okay?" Courtney made a quiet sound through her nose. I kept brushing dust from the sensor. 4 weeks sounded distant that afternoon. Everything beyond Saturday felt distant. I don't know, I said. She turned to Jonathan. We have clients who've saved this date. How? I asked. The invitations haven't gone out. We sent an electronic notice. When? Monday. Barbara had still been alive Monday morning. I set the brush down. Courtney saw my face and spoke more softly. The caterer needed a date. I couldn't lose the deposit. You chose the date before asking me. We use the same weekend every year. My wife was dying, and I was trying to keep the company operating so Jonathan could be with her. Jonathan folded the invitation in half without meaning to. When he noticed, he smoothed it against the assembly table. Maybe we should move it, he said. Where? I don't know. Exactly. She placed the envelopes on a clean cart. We have 6 active projects and 4 consultation slots tied to that event. We can't just disappear for a month. Jonathan looked at me. Can we talk about this after Saturday? That was what I had asked for. Still, hearing it from him didn't feel the same. He wasn't protecting me from Courtney. He was asking me to remain available until he had the strength to deal with her. I said, after Saturday. Courtney picked up the envelopes again. Fine. Then she carried them into the office. Jonathan helped me remove the sensor cover. We worked without talking. The bearing held. I cleaned the mechanism, reset the tracking, and showed him where the dust had packed behind the guard. You need to check this every Friday, I said. I will. You said that last time. I know. I installed a replacement belt from my own storage cabinet. Jonathan started the machine and watched it run. The belt stayed centered. He shut it off and gave me a tired smile. You saved us. There it was. The line I'd heard for years. Usually it warmed me. That day it sounded like confirmation of a job I hadn't applied for. I put the tools back in my box. Call a technician about the bearing, I said. Can you give me the part number? It's on the plate. I can't read half of it. Clean it. He looked surprised. Then he nodded. All right. I walked back to the house. My coat smelled like machine dust. In the kitchen, Barbara's memorial list sat exactly where I'd left it. One of the missing calls was to her cousin in Roanoke. Another was to a woman from the garden club, whose last name I couldn't remember. Barbara would have known both numbers without looking. I washed my hands and found a gray line of dust beneath my wedding ring. The phone rang before I finished drying them. It was Courtney. I wanted to make sure we're all right, she said. We're not. I mean about the preview. We're talking after Saturday. I heard you. I just need to know you're not going to pull something sudden. I looked through the window. Jonathan was carrying the damaged sanding belt toward the trash bin. What would I pull? I don't know. You're upset. My wife died. I know, Howard. No, you know the words. That's not the same thing. She was silent. Then she said, I'm under pressure too. From what? Payroll, suppliers, customers. The business doesn't pause because we're grieving. That's not fair. I waited. She lowered her voice. Jonathan can barely function. I'm carrying everything. He repaired a machine with me. You repaired it. He stood there. That was cruel, but it wasn't entirely false. You could have called a technician, I said. With what money? You have customers. We have receivables. That's different. I leaned against the sink. How much is in the company account? That's between me and Jonathan. Then the repair is between you and the technician. She exhaled sharply. This is what I was afraid of. What? You making business decisions because you're angry at me. It's my machine. It's the company's equipment. The sander belongs to me. She stopped. When they moved into the workshop, they had brought their table saw, edge bander, and spray equipment. The wide belt sander was mine. So was the dust collection system, the assembly table, and half the hand tools Jonathan used without thinking. I had never made a list for them because I knew which things were mine. Apparently Courtney didn't. I thought Jonathan bought that from you, she said. He didn't. Well, no one told me. It's written on the equipment list attached to the workshop agreement. Another silence. I hadn't opened that agreement since we signed it. I remembered the equipment list because Barbara had made me type it. Courtney said, I've never seen that. You signed it. I signed a use agreement. Jonathan handled the attachments. Then asked him, This is exactly why we need a property meeting? No. It's exactly why you need to read what you sign. She ended the call without saying goodbye. I stood in the kitchen with the phone still against my ear. For 1 second I felt good. I had answered her plainly. I had reminded her the workshop wasn't an extension of her company office. Then I noticed the replacement sanding belt package on the counter. I had bought 3 belts the previous winter. The company hadn't reimbursed me. I had probably never sent them a receipt. That was when the harder part began to show itself. Courtney acted entitled because I had allowed it. Jonathan waited for rescue because rescue always came. I complained to Barbara, then walked outside with my toolbox anyway. I had called that love. Sometimes it was love. Sometimes it was fear with a useful face. If I stopped fixing things, what reason would Jonathan have to cross the yard? I didn't like the question, so I went back to the memorial list. Saturday came cold and bright. The church smelled of coffee, lilies, and furniture polish. Barbara's photograph stood on a table near the entrance. It was one I'd taken in our garden. She was holding her pruning shears and squinting into the sun. Jonathan arrived early in a dark suit that didn't fit across his shoulders anymore. He came straight to me and held on longer than I expected. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Neither do I." Courtney walked in behind him carrying her phone and a garment bag. "The florist put 2 arrangements in the wrong room," she said. "I'm fixing it." Jonathan released me. I watched him follow her down the hall. During the memorial, he sat beside me. When the first hymn began, he opened the program but didn't sing. His thumb kept rubbing the folded edge until the paper went soft. He hadn't prepared a reading. I had. I stood at the lectern and told a short story about the first cabinet I built for Barbara. The doors didn't meet evenly, and she kept it for 42 years anyway. I said she had a talent for seeing what could be repaired without pretending it wasn't crooked. That was all I managed. Afterward, people came through the fellowship room carrying casseroles and covered dishes. They told me Barbara had been kind, practical, funny, stubborn, organized, and always 5 minutes early. Every description was true. Jonathan stayed close for the first half hour. Then Courtney touched his arm and pointed toward a man near the coffee urn. "That's Dennis Patterson," she said quietly. "You need to speak to him." "Today?" "He came all this way." Jonathan looked at me. "Go," I said. He hesitated. I said it again. "Go ahead." He crossed the room and shook the customer's hand. I watched his shoulders settle as they started discussing cabinet doors. Work gave him somewhere to stand. I understood that because it had done the same for me. Courtney joined them. Within a minute, she had her phone out, showing Dennis something on the screen. I stayed beside Barbara's photograph. That afternoon, after everyone left, Jonathan helped carry flowers into my living room. Courtney brought in the food containers and stacked them in the refrigerator. She opened a kitchen drawer without asking, found a marker, and began labeling lids. "You'll never eat all this," she said. "I can freeze it. You forget what's in the freezer." "I do not. You still have soup from Christmas. Your mother-in-law made that soup." Her hand stopped. Jonathan came in carrying the lilies. "Where do you want these?" "Living room table." Courtney closed the refrigerator. "We should sort out your mail while we're here," she said. "My mail? There's a pile by the side door. It came during the week. I can take the bills and set up automatic payments. I pay my bills. I'm not saying you don't." Jonathan placed the lilies on the table. Maybe she could just help organize them. I looked at him. "Do you think I need help?" He loosened his tie. "I think you've had a terrible week." "That isn't what I asked." Courtney picked up the pile. She began separating envelopes before I answered. Insurance, electric, county tax notice. I took them from her. Not quickly, not dramatically. I simply held out my hand until she gave them back. "These stay here," I said. She looked toward Jonathan. He looked at the floor. I carried the mail into my office, opened the locked file cabinet, and placed the county envelope inside. The workshop agreement was in the folder behind it, exactly where Barbara had told me to keep it. I touched the folder tab, then closed the drawer. When I returned, Courtney had her coat on. "We'll let you rest," she said. Jonathan hugged me at the door. Courtney was already walking toward their car. "Call if you need anything," he said. I almost told him I needed him to stay. Instead, I asked, "Did you know the sander still belongs to me?" He pulled back. "Of course." Courtney didn't. She gets mixed up about the equipment. She signed the list. He rubbed his forehead. "Dad, can we not do this today?" "No. We don't have to do it today. Thank you." That wasn't the same as saying it doesn't matter. He nodded, but he didn't meet my eyes. Then he went to the car. I shut the side door and stood in the kitchen. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator. On the counter, beneath the marker Courtney had used, I found one envelope she'd missed. It was addressed to the company at my home, not the workshop. Inside was a deposit check from a new customer and a handwritten note thanking Courtney for reserving an installation date in early summer. The client preview was still weeks away. Courtney had already sold work beyond it. I read the note twice, then looked at the check. The amount was enough to start a kitchen job, not just hold a consultation. Courtney had written the company name above my address on the deposit instructions. I called Jonathan. He answered from the car. "Everything okay?" I found a check in my mail. "What check?" I read the customer's name. "Oh, Courtney's been waiting for that. Why was it sent here? We've used your address for checks before." "No, you use the workshop address. They're the same property. They're not the same mailbox." He was quiet for a moment. "Can I come get it?" he asked. "I'll bring it to the shop tomorrow. Courtney needs to deposit it. Then she can wait until tomorrow." "Dad." "What?" "Nothing. Tomorrow's fine." I set the check and note beside my keys. Then I went into the living room and changed the water beneath the lilies. The stems had been cut too long. The flowers leaned toward the window and pulled the vase off center. Barbara would have trimmed them immediately. I found the kitchen scissors and shortened each stem over the sink. When I put the flowers back, they stood straighter. That evening, I opened the freezer. Courtney had been right about the soup. One container had been there since Christmas. I heated it anyway. The next morning, I walked to the workshop before 8. The company office was a narrow room I had built along the east wall. It used to hold finishing supplies. Courtney had painted it pale gray and installed white cabinets with brass handles. Jonathan sat at the desk drinking coffee. A project calendar covered the wall behind him. I placed the envelope in front of him. "Thank you," he said. "Don't send business mail to my house. I'll tell Courtney. I'm telling you." He looked at the envelope. "Okay." I pointed to the wall calendar. "Which job is that check for?" He turned in his chair. "The Mercer kitchen." "When does it start?" "Late June." "And the installation?" "Probably August." I looked at the calendar. Each project had its own colored strip. Several strips continued past the client preview. 2 reached almost to fall. "Those are all being built here? That's the plan? How many did you book this month?" "I don't know exactly." "You're looking at the calendar. Courtney handles the contracts. You build the cabinets." He took a drink and set the cup down. "We have 6 active projects. 4 more are signed. A few consultations are still open. Are the signed jobs priced on free rent?" His face changed. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean. We don't put rent on customer estimates, but your prices assume you're not paying it." He leaned back. "Dad, what is this? A question. You've never asked me questions like this." "I should have." He rubbed his jaw. "Some jobs have better margins than others. That wasn't my question. I don't know how Courtney calculates every quote. Do you know how much a commercial shop would cost? More than we can afford right now." "How much?" He looked toward the loading door. "I've seen places around $2,000 a month. With enough power? Probably more. Dust collection? No. Finishing room? No. Loading access? Usually. So, you don't know." "No, I don't know." I pulled a folding chair away from the wall and sat across from him. "Show me the signed jobs." "Why?" "Because they're scheduled in my building. They're company contracts. I'm not asking what the customers paid. I want dates. I want to know how long you've promised to work here." He stared at me. Then he stood and took a binder from the cabinet behind his desk. Courtney had organized it by month. I didn't read the prices. I looked at production dates, installation dates, and notes about client visits. 4 signed jobs extended beyond the preview. 2 more proposals listed the workshop as the meeting location. One had a note saying that his customer wanted to see where the cabinets would be made before paying the second deposit. I tapped that page. "When are they coming?" "Next Thursday." "Did you ask me?" "It's a business meeting. It's still my property. They won't go near the house. They'll drive through my gate and park in my yard." He closed the binder. "You told us we could run the company here." "I did." "So, what changed?" "Your mother died, and before her memorial, your wife wanted to discuss what happens to my property. That wasn't about the company. She mentioned the company on the same call. She was worried." "About what?" He didn't answer. I waited. Finally, he said, "She thinks you might make a quick decision, such as selling, moving. I don't know." "Have I said I'm selling?" "No." "Have I said I'm moving?" "No." "Then why are customers being promised dates without anyone checking with me?" "Because this has been our shop for 8 years. The word "our" hung there. I stood. "It's been the company's place of business. That isn't the same thing. I know it belongs to you." Do you? Yes. Then why didn't you know which machines belong to me? His eyes went toward the sander. I knew about that one. Courtney didn't. She handles office stuff. She signed the equipment list. I don't remember every page we signed 8 years ago. That's the problem. Courtney came through the office door while I was still standing. She carried 2 cardboard trays of coffee in a paper bag. She saw the binder on the desk. "What's going on?" Jonathan said. "Dad wanted to see the production dates." She put the coffee down. "Why?" I told her. She looked at the envelope beside Jonathan's hand. "You opened our mail?" "It came to my house. It had the company name on it, and my street address. You knew it wasn't yours." I brought it over. "That check should have been deposited Saturday." "It arrived Saturday. We use mobile deposit, then use your business address." She picked up the check and inspected it as if I might have damaged it. Jonathan said, "Courtney, just change the address." "To what?" "Carriers don't recognize the workshop as a separate unit half the time." "Then get a post office box," I said. "That costs money. So does everything when someone else stops providing it." Jonathan looked at me. "Dad, come on." Courtney placed the check inside her purse. "No, I'd like him to explain that." "I just did." "You're acting like we don't contribute anything. You pay electricity. We maintain the property." I looked through the office window at the shop floor. A broken section of gutter had been hanging above the loading door since January. The gravel beside the building had ruts from their delivery van. 2 company dumpsters sat on the concrete pad I had poured for lumber storage. "What did you maintain?" I asked. She folded her arms. "We paid to paint this office. The company painted its own office. We replaced the bathroom sink. After one of your employees cracked it." Jonathan stood between us. "All right, this isn't helping." Courtney turned to him. He went through our contracts. I showed him the dates. "Those files are confidential." "I didn't read the amounts," I said. "That's not the point. The point is you've promised the use of my building through summer. You gave us use of the building, month to month." She blinked. It was a small reaction. If I hadn't been watching, I would have missed it. Jonathan looked at me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the agreement never promised you 8 years. It renews each month." Courtney set her jaw. "We're aware of the agreement. I don't think you are. Are you threatening to evict your own son during the week of his mother's funeral? The funeral was yesterday. That's your answer?" "No." "My answer is I asked to see the dates." She turned toward Jonathan. "I told you this would happen." He said, "Can you give us a minute?" "Why? So you can apologize for me?" "No. So I can talk to my father." She picked up one of the coffee trays and left the office. The paper bag stayed on the desk. Jonathan waited until the door closed. "Please don't do anything right now." "I haven't. You came in here asking about rent and contracts. I brought your check. You know what I mean." "I did." He sat down again. "Courtney thinks you blame her," he said. "For what?" "For Mom being alone when she got sick." "I was with your mother. I mean before. All those dinners we missed. Holidays. We came late. That wasn't what we were discussing. It's part of it." "Is that what you think?" He looked tired. Older than he had at the memorial. "I think everybody feels guilty, and Courtney gets defensive when she feels guilty. That explains her. It doesn't excuse her. I know. Do you?" He opened the paper bag. Inside were 2 breakfast sandwiches. He took one out, then pushed the other toward me. I didn't touch it. "Dad, I can't lose the shop right now." There it was, said plainly for the first time. Not the house, not concern for my safety, not fear I would be lonely. The shop. "Why not?" I asked. "Because we priced too tightly this year. Materials went up. 2 customers paid late. We covered payroll from deposits on new jobs." I stared at him. "Are those deposits paying for the jobs they belong to?" "They will." "That's not what I asked. We're not stealing anything." "I didn't say you were." "Then don't look at me like that." "How am I looking at you?" "Like I'm stupid." I sat down again. "I don't think you're stupid." "Courtney says we need volume to get ahead. Is it working?" He unwrapped his sandwich but didn't eat it. "We had a rough winter. You told me January was your best month. For sales, not for cash. No. That was the inconsistency I had been trying to understand. They talked about full calendars, signed projects, and record orders. But every broken machine became an emergency I was expected to absorb. "How much did the company spend on repairs last year?" I asked. I'd have to check. "How much did I spend?" His eyes dropped to the sandwich. "I don't know. Neither do I." He pressed the wrapper flat against the desk. I'll get you the receipts. You don't have my receipts. Then tell me what you paid. That's not the point. I shouldn't have to build an invoice after the fact so you notice what happened. He nodded slowly. I pointed to the calendar. Finish the jobs you've already started. Don't book another client visit here without asking me first. His head came up. What about the preview? We're discussing that separately. Courtney already sent the invitations. She told me she sent an electronic notice. She mailed these Friday. He nodded toward a box under the side table. It was empty except for torn bands of paper and one spare envelope. The printed invitations were gone. How many? About 80. I felt the back of my neck go warm. Customers, suppliers, designers, people we've worked with. And all of them have my address. It's the same invitation we send every year. No, Jonathan, it's a new invitation with an old assumption. He closed his eyes. We can't pull them back. I know. That was the cost of getting a straight answer. I now knew the preview wasn't a private family matter. Courtney had tied my property to a public promise and sent that promise to 80 people. I left the breakfast sandwich on the desk. At home, I took a clean sheet from the yellow legal pad. I wrote down every company machine I could remember and every machine of mine they used. Then I called a commercial leasing office listed on a sign near the highway. A man named Steven answered. I told him I wasn't looking to sign anything. I only wanted to know what a workshop with proper power, loading access, and about the same floor space might rent for in Staunton. He asked a few questions. Roughly $2,400 a month, he said. More if the finishing setup is already approved. I thanked him and ended the call. For 8 years, I had treated free use as a favor already given. I had never counted it as something I was still giving each month. I wrote $2,400 beneath the equipment list. Then I unlocked the file cabinet and removed the workshop agreement. I carried it to the kitchen table and read every page. The language was plain. Barbara had made sure of that. No automatic renewal for a year. No promise of permanent use. No rent credit for improvements. No ownership claim created by time. The permission continued 1 month at a time. Either side could end it by giving 30 days written notice. I had known that when I signed. I just hadn't allowed myself to think of the provision as something I might use. The equipment attachment was 4 pages long. Barbara had walked through the workshop with me while I dictated each item. Wide belt sander, dust collector, assembly table, air compressor, clamp racks, portable tools stored in the west cabinets. Beside each item, she had written either Howard Walton or Company. At the bottom of the final page was a sentence requiring the company to return all keys when the permission ended. I could see Barbara sitting across from me 8 years earlier. She had tapped that sentence with her fingernail. How many keys are there? 3. Write that down. Why? Because keys multiply when no one counts them. I had laughed and written 3 company keys issued. Jonathan still carried one on the ring clipped to his belt. Courtney kept one in her purse. The third had been assigned to their senior employee. I made 2 copies of the agreement. I returned the original to the cabinet and locked it. Then I put 1 copy in the top drawer of my desk. The other stayed on the kitchen table beneath my legal pad. I didn't write a notice. Not yet. I wanted to speak to Jonathan without Courtney beside him. I called and asked if he could come to the house that evening. Is something broken? He asked. No. Do you need groceries? No. What is it? I want to talk to you. He paused. Tonight's difficult. Why? We have to revise the Patterson schedule. Come after that. It might be late. I'll be awake. He arrived a little after 9. He came through the side door and looked around the kitchen. Where's the problem? He asked. There isn't one. You sounded serious. I am serious. He saw the copy of the agreement on the table. His shoulders dropped. Dad. Sit down. I've been on my feet since 6. So have I, one way or another. He pulled out a chair. I turned the agreement toward him. Did you tell Courtney the use is month to month? She knows. She didn't seem to know yesterday. She knows we signed an agreement. That wasn't my question. He rubbed both eyes. I don't know what she remembers. What do you remember? That you let us use the shop. For how long? There wasn't an end date. There doesn't need to be one. It renews monthly. I see that. You saw it when you signed. I was trying to keep the company alive. I didn't study every sentence. Your mother did. His face tightened. Please don't bring Mom into this like she was against us. She wasn't against you. Then why say it that way? Because she made sure this paper was clear. He read the first page. I watched his finger stop at the termination provision. "Are you ending it?" he asked. "I haven't decided." He looked up. "You called a leasing office." That surprised me. "How do you know?" Stephen called Courtney. She contacted him last year about a warehouse. "I didn't give him your company name. Staunton isn't that big." "No, it isn't." He pushed the paper away. "Are you trying to scare us? I'm trying to understand what I've been providing. You know what you provide. I knew the parts. I didn't put them together." He leaned forward. "Then let me put something together for you. If we pay $2,400 a month, plus utilities and insurance, our margin disappears. All of it, most of it. Then the company doesn't earn what you tell people. It earns. We're growing. Growth that only works because your father owns the building isn't the same thing." He stood and walked to the sink. Courtney said, "You do this." "Do what?" "Turn help into debt. I never asked you to repay 8 years. But you're counting it now. I'm counting what happens next month." He rested both hands on the edge of the sink. "I can't deal with this right now." "You keep saying that." "Because Mom just died. She was my wife." He turned around. "I know that." "Then stop using her death to end every conversation." His mouth opened, then closed. We stood there without speaking. Finally, he returned to the table. "What do you want?" he asked. It was a direct question. I should have had a direct answer. I didn't. Part of me wanted him to say he would move the company without being asked. Another part wanted him to reach across the table and tell me he'd come every Sunday even if the workshop burned down. Instead, I said, "I want no new commitments tied to my property. For how long? Until we sort this out. The preview is already committed. We haven't sorted that out. We can't cancel it. You can move it. To where? That's your business problem." He stared at the agreement. "Courtney will say you're punishing her. This isn't about what Courtney says. It always becomes about what Courtney says." There was more truth in that than he intended. He folded his arms. "I'll tell her not to book new visits, and no new projects that require this building beyond what you've already signed. I don't know if she'll agree. You're half the company. That doesn't mean what you think it means." He took the copy of the agreement. "May I keep this?" "Yes." He folded it once and put it inside his jacket. At the door I said, "Come by sometime when nothing is broken." He gave me a tired smile. "I'm here now." "Because I called you about the workshop." The smile went away. "I'll try," he said. After he left, I stood with my hand on the doorknob and listened to his car start. I had finally asked him for something that wasn't hidden inside a repair, a meal, or a favor. His answer was that he would try. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a car door. It was shortly after 10. Sunlight came through the bedroom curtains, and for a few seconds I expected to hear Barbara in the bathroom. Then I remembered. I dressed and went downstairs. The lilies sat on the living room table. Their white blossoms were open, but the edges had begun to curl. I lifted the vase to change the water. That was when the side door opened. Courtney came in first. Michelle followed with her black case. By the time I reached the hallway, Courtney was already leading her toward the bedroom. "The bedroom furniture is original," she said. "There's jewelry in the top drawer, and the silver is downstairs." I followed them, still carrying the vase. Courtney opened Barbara's desk and reached into the lower drawer. She removed the household inventory notebook. Barbara had started that notebook after a pipe burst in our kitchen years ago. The insurance company had asked for a list of everything damaged. She decided we should never have to reconstruct our belongings from memory again. She kept receipts tucked into its pockets. Each room had its own section: furniture, appliances, jewelry, tools, silver, china. Courtney opened to the bedroom pages. Michelle looked at me. "Before we begin, I need to confirm authorization with the owner." Courtney laughed lightly. "He's right here. We're all family." Michelle didn't move. "Mr. Walton, did you authorize this appraisal?" "No." Courtney turned. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I didn't authorize it." Michelle closed the cover on her tablet. Courtney held up the notebook. "We're only getting values." "No, nothing is being sold today." "No." "Howard, this is information. It's Barbara's property. It's family property. It became mine when my wife died." She looked toward Michelle, as if expecting support. Michelle spoke carefully. "I can't inspect or value property without the owner's permission." Courtney's face reddened. "I explained the situation when I called. You said the family had agreed. We did agree." "I didn't," I said. She turned on me. Jonathan and I agreed. That doesn't include me. Michelle lowered the handle on her case. I'm sorry, Mr. Walton. I wasn't aware authorization was in question. You don't need to apologize. Courtney stepped between her and the door. Can we at least do the pieces that will eventually pass to Jonathan? No, Michelle said. Not without Mr. Walton's approval. There's a consultation fee. I'll send it back. You blocked out 2 hours. Michelle looked at me again. I'll be leaving. I moved aside. Courtney followed her into the hallway. This is ridiculous. He's grieving. Michelle stopped. Grief doesn't remove his authority over his property. She didn't say it harshly. That made it land harder. Courtney glanced at me. Michelle handed me a business card. If you ever choose to have an appraisal, you can contact me directly. Thank you. She left through the side door. The car started, backed down the driveway, and disappeared beyond the hedge. One deliberate word had ended the entire visit. Courtney stood in my hallway holding Barbara's notebook. I took it from her. What were you planning to sell? I asked. Nothing. Then why an appraiser? Because values matter. To whom? To everyone. Name everyone. She looked toward the living room. Jonathan has an inheritance to protect. From me, from bad decisions. Whose bad decisions? I'm not doing this while you twist every word. You brought a stranger into my wife's bedroom. She was a professional. That makes it worse, not better. Courtney pressed her lips together. You get attached to objects, she said. Barbara did too. Someone has to think practically. I held the notebook against my chest. Did Jonathan know? He knew we needed values. Did he know she was coming today? He knew I scheduled an appraisal. Did he know I hadn't approved it? I told him I would handle you. There it was. Not ask me. Handle me. I set the lilies back on the living room table. Water moved against the glass. Call Jonathan, I said. He's working. So were you, apparently. She took out her phone. Jonathan arrived 20 minutes later. He came in fast, still wearing his work apron. What happened? I held up Michelle's card. Did you know Courtney hired an appraiser? He looked at his wife. I knew she called someone. Did you think I had agreed? Yes. Courtney said, I told you I was handling it. You said Dad was being stubborn, but you'd get permission. I said I'd take care of it. That means permission. No, it means I took care of it. Jonathan turned to me. I'm sorry. I thought you knew. Why didn't you ask me? I thought she had. Why didn't you ask me? He had no answer. Courtney picked up her purse from the hall table. You're both acting like I tried to rob the house. You tried to inventory it for sale, I said, for value, without me. She looked at Jonathan. Are you coming? He stayed where he was. That was small, but I noticed it. Courtney left alone. Jonathan watched her car pull away. I really did think you agreed, he said. I believe you. His shoulders loosened. That doesn't make it acceptable. They tightened again. I carried Barbara's notebook into my office. Jonathan followed me. I placed it in the locked file cabinet beside the original workshop agreement. Then I removed a sheet of paper I had printed while waiting for him. It gave the company 30 days written notice that its permission to use the workshop was ending. It listed the final date and required the building to be cleared and every key returned. Jonathan read it without speaking. Dad, don't. I signed my name. He stared at the paper. You said last night you hadn't decided. I hadn't. And now you have? I handed him the notice. Yes. He kept holding it as if the paper might change. 30 days? He asked. That's what we agreed. You know we can't move a whole shop in 30 days. I know you haven't tried. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know. You called Steven. Did he have a place? I called to learn the rent. So, you've been planning this. I started asking questions yesterday. He lowered his voice. Please wait until I talk to Courtney. You can talk to her. The notice still stands. She's going to think this is retaliation. It's a boundary. Because of the appraiser. Because of everything that led her to believe she could bring one here. Jonathan read the final date again. The preview is on the last day. I hadn't realized that. I checked the date on my desk calendar. He was right. Their annual client preview fell on the 30th day. Then you'll have to clear the workshop before the guests arrive, I said. That's impossible. It isn't impossible. It's inconvenient. Dad, there are cabinets in production. Then we need to identify which jobs can be completed. I'm not going to damage customer property. I'll help you plan the move. You'll help us move after forcing us out? I'll help with work. I won't pay for it. He looked down at the notice. I need to show this to Courtney. Yes, don't call anyone else yet. I'm not announcing it. Promise me. I promise I won't announce your business. He folded the notice along the same line as the agreement and put it inside his jacket. At the side door, he stopped. I wish Mom were here. So do I. She would know how to calm this down. Your mother isn't a vote you get to cast after she's gone. He looked ashamed. I didn't mean it that way. I know. He left, and I locked the door behind him. Less than an hour later, Courtney called. You can't terminate our workshop in 30 days. I already did. You gave Jonathan a piece of paper while he was upset. I gave written notice to an owner of the company. I'm also an owner. I printed another copy for you. This agreement was never supposed to be used like this. How was it supposed to be used? For insurance. You said that yourself. It says either side can end the arrangement. Technically. There's nothing technical about 30 days. She spoke away from the phone for a moment. A drawer closed in the background. We have over $100,000 in contracted work. That work belongs to the company. It requires a shop, then lease one. Do you have any idea what commercial rent costs? About $2,400 a month. She went quiet. Then she said, You called Steven to embarrass us. I didn't use your name. He knew exactly who you were. That's because your company has operated from my property for 8 years. You're proving my point. I don't know what your point is. You're not thinking clearly. The words came slowly, like she wanted me to hear each one. You had an appraiser in my bedroom without permission, to help you. You sent preview invitations without asking. We do that every year. You booked projects through summer. We run a business. And now you have 30 days. You're angry, yes. At least you admit it. Being angry doesn't make the agreement disappear. She exhaled. I'm coming over. No. We need to discuss this in person, not today. It cannot wait. It can wait until Jonathan gets home. I'm already in the driveway. I looked through the office window. Her car was beside the workshop. Then turn around, I said. She ended the call. A few minutes later, she knocked at the side door. I didn't answer. She knocked again, harder. Howard, I know you're in there. I stayed in my office. After the third knock, she tried the handle. I had locked it. She stood on the step for almost a minute. Then she returned to her car. I watched her drive toward the street. That was another small thing I had never done before. I had refused to open my own door. It felt rude. It also worked. The next morning, I woke early and made coffee. I expected another call. None came. At 9, I walked to the workshop with my legal pad. Jonathan was cutting plywood at the table saw. He shut the machine off when he saw me. Courtney says we shouldn't let you in without her. I looked at him. He rubbed the back of his neck. I told her it's your building. What did she say? Nothing helpful. I held up the equipment list. We need to walk through everything. Today? The clock started yesterday. He pulled off his hearing protection. All right. We began at the loading door. The company's table saw had been wired into a floor outlet. Their edge bander stood along the south wall. Their spray equipment was in my finishing room, connected to my exhaust system. We marked each item, company or Howard. Jonathan argued over the large clamp rack. I built the extensions, he said. You built them from my lumber and attached them to my rack. Then I'll leave the extensions. You can take what you made. Where would I put them? That's not an ownership question. He wrote company beside extensions. At the air compressor, he stopped. I thought we bought this. You bought the second tank. The motor was replaced with company money. The compressor is still mine. He crouched and looked at the manufacturer's plate. Do you have the receipt? I have the original manual. That's not a receipt. The equipment list you signed identifies it. He stood. Fine. We continued. The process took most of the morning. It was uncomfortable, but useful. By noon, we had a complete list of what had to leave and what stayed. Their largest machines could fit through the loading door. Nothing was trapped. Nothing had been built permanently into the structure. The spray lines could be disconnected. The edge bander needed a moving crew. The table saw required an electrician to remove its connections safely. Jonathan leaned against the assembly table. I thought this would be worse. So did I. If we find a place this week, we could move the heavy equipment over 2 weekends. Yes. He studied the list. The finishing room is the problem. You may have to send finished pieces elsewhere for a while. That costs money. I know. He looked toward the office. Courtney says there's no money for a deposit and first month's rent. Where did the Mercer check go? Payroll. All of it? Most of it. What about the Patterson payment? Materials. He pulled a pencil from behind his ear. I told her we need to slow down. What did she say? That slowing down is how companies die. Taking deposits to cover old work isn't healthy. I know. Does she? She knows the numbers better than I do. That wasn't what I asked. He pushed away from the table. Can we finish the list? We did. Then I need to work. I tore off the top copy and handed it to him. Call an electrician today. Get a moving estimate. Find out what space is available. I said I would look. Looking is not calling. His jaw tightened. You don't get to manage us now. You're right. That stopped him. I put my copy inside the folder. You manage the move. I'm telling you what access I'll provide. What does that mean? If an electrician needs the panel, I'll be here. If movers need measurements, I'll open the building. If you want me to identify a connection, ask me directly. And repairs? No. He stared at me. For 30 days? For good. Even if it's your equipment? I'll maintain what belongs to me. I won't keep your production running. He gave a short, humorless laugh. That's convenient. No? Convenient was what we had before. I left him beside the assembly table. On my way back to the house, I saw Courtney at the roadside mailbox. She had a stack of envelopes in her hand. I changed direction and walked toward her. What are you doing? She turned. Getting the company mail. That's my mailbox. Half of this is ours. Then hand me the stack. She held it against her coat. I can sort it. I didn't ask you to. Howard, this is childish. Give me my mail. She separated 2 envelopes and held them out. One was a condolence card. The other was a statement from our homeowner's insurance company. I looked at the remaining stack. What else? Business mail? I held out my hand. She stared at me, then gave me everything. There were 3 company envelopes and another condolence card addressed to me. A pharmacy notice with Barbara's name showed through the window of a 5th envelope. Courtney had put it with the business mail. I removed my envelopes. From now on, you don't open this box. The business address is here. Get a post office box. You keep saying that like it's free. It costs less than commercial rent. She took the company envelopes from me. You're enjoying this. No, you've waited years to make us admit we need you. That hit close enough to make me pause. She saw it. I'm right, she said. You're right that I wanted to be needed. Her expression changed. She hadn't expected me to agree. I continued. I confused that with being respected. She shifted the mail to her other hand. So, now you're teaching us a lesson? No, I'm ending an arrangement. You'll change your mind. I won't. Jonathan believes you will. Did he say that? He doesn't have to. She walked back toward the workshop. I carried my mail inside and put it on the kitchen table. The pharmacy notice was automatic. It said a prescription was ready for pickup. I called and told them Barbara had died. The woman on the phone apologized and closed the notification. That took less than 2 minutes. I sat with the condolence cards after that. One was from the garden club woman, whose last name I hadn't remembered. She had written it clearly beneath her message. I added her name to the memorial list, though the memorial was over. In the afternoon, a caterer called. She introduced herself and said she wanted to confirm access for the client preview. I understand the loading area will be available from noon, she said. Who told you that? Courtney confirmed it this morning. This morning? Yes. She said there had been a family scheduling concern, but it was resolved. It isn't resolved. The woman paused. Should I cancel? I'm not the person who hired you. You need to speak with Courtney. I need to know whether my staff can enter the property. Not without my permission? All right. When will you decide? I looked at the calendar. The notice expired on the preview date. Until then, the company still had lawful use of the workshop. That was the harder part of the agreement. It protected both sides. The company has access through that morning, I said. After that, I haven't authorized an event. She thanked me and ended the call. 5 minutes later, Courtney called. You had no right to frighten the caterer. She called me. You told her the preview might be canceled. I told her the truth. The notice expires at the end of that day. No. Permission ends on the date written in the notice. You need to be out and return the keys. We'll be out after the preview. That isn't what the notice says. You're splitting hairs. I'm reading the paper. Her voice sharpened. Those guests are coming, Howard. Once they're standing in that workshop, You're not going to humiliate your own son by throwing everyone into the street. I looked through the window at the red brick building. She had found the complication before I did. The preview wasn't just an event anymore. It was the pressure she intended to use against the deadline. I could have canceled it that afternoon. The event was on my property. The caterer needed my approval. I could have called every vendor whose name I knew and told them not to come. I didn't. That would have made Courtney's prediction true in a different way. She could tell everyone the grieving widower had ruined a company event without warning. The notice would become background noise. I needed the deadline to remain ordinary. The next day, Jonathan called shortly before lunch. "The spray pump is surging," he said. "What kind of surge?" "Pressure drops, then it spits." "Did you clean the intake screen?" "Yes." "Check the regulator." "I did." "Then call the manufacturer." He went quiet. "Can you just come look?" "No." "Dad, this is the Patterson finish. I know. If the color goes uneven, we have to sand everything back. Then stop spraying. We're already late. That doesn't make the pump work." He lowered his voice. "You know these machines better than the people on the phone." "Maybe. So, come over." "No." "What are you doing?" I looked around the kitchen. I wasn't doing anything urgent. A cup sat in the sink. The newspaper was folded beside me. "I'm having lunch." "You're refusing to walk 30 yards because you're proving a point. I told you I was done maintaining company equipment." "You said that when everybody was angry." "I wasn't angry when I said it. That's worse." I heard Courtney speaking in the background. Jonathan covered the phone, but not completely. Then he returned. "She says we'll call a technician. That's what you should do. The service charge starts the minute he leaves Harrisonburg." "I understand." "No, you don't. You're not paying it." He ended the call. I made a sandwich and ate half of it. Through the kitchen window, I could see Jonathan carrying sample boards from the finishing room into daylight. He tilted each one toward the sun and rubbed a thumb over the surface. I knew what he was checking. If the pump had spit finish, tiny droplets would dry above the smooth coat. You could feel them before you could see them. I nearly put on my work boots. My body had already started the decision before the rest of me caught up. I stayed in the chair. An hour later, a white service van pulled beside the workshop. A technician carried 2 cases through the loading door. He stayed most of the afternoon. When he left, Jonathan stood beside the van with an invoice in his hand. He read the bottom, folded the page, and put it in his pocket. The spray pump started again after 4. It ran for less than an hour before the shop went quiet. That evening, someone knocked at my side door. It was Jonathan. I let him in. "The pressure sensor failed," he said. "Did he replace it?" "He had one on the truck." "Good." "It wasn't the regulator." "I didn't say it was. He said the intake screen wasn't seated correctly. That can damage the sensor." Jonathan looked past me into the kitchen. "Can I have some water?" I filled a glass and handed it to him. He drank most of it without stopping. "We missed the delivery," he said. "Patterson?" "Yes." "When can you finish?" "Tomorrow afternoon, if nothing else goes wrong." "What did the customer say?" "That this is the 3rd delay." I waited. "He wants money back," Jonathan said. "How much?" "I don't know yet." "Courtney's talking to him." He set the glass near the sink. "You could have found that sensor in 10 minutes. Maybe. You would have known about the screen. Maybe. Stop saying maybe. You know you would have." I rinsed the knife from my lunch. "Then what would you have learned?" He stared at me. "I learned the pressure sensor failed. You learned you need a maintenance schedule. We don't have time for a maintenance schedule. That's why the machine failed during a job." He slapped his palm against the counter. Not hard, but enough to make the glass jump. "Do you hear yourself?" "Yes. My mother dies, you throw us out, and now you stand here teaching me a lesson while my company falls apart. I didn't break the pump. You knew it would happen. I knew something would break eventually. Machines do. And you waited." "No, I stopped preventing it." He looked toward the living room. The lilies were visible through the doorway. "You're enjoying this," he said. Courtney said the same thing. "Maybe you should listen." He picked up his glass, finished the water, and set it down too firmly. "I called 3 listings today. That was the useful result I had wanted. It didn't feel useful when he said it." "What did you find?" "One is too small, one doesn't allow finishing, one needs electrical work we can't afford." "Call more." "Every decent space costs around what Stephen told you." "Then that's the market." "We don't have market money. You have market customers." He gave me a look I remembered from when he was younger. Hurt first, anger laid over it. Mom would never have done this. I dried my hands. Your mother asked for the agreement. She asked for an insurance paper. She asked for 30 days. She asked for equipment lists. She asked us to count the keys. She also loved me. So do I. It doesn't feel like it. He left his glass on the counter and walked out. I didn't follow. A few minutes later, his truck pulled away from the workshop. Courtney's car remained. I stood at the living room window until the truck turned at the end of Tam Street. That was the cost I had avoided thinking about. Ending the arrangement wasn't just taking back a building. It removed the place where Jonathan and I knew how to be father and son. We could talk through a machine. We could stand shoulder to shoulder and solve something without looking at each other. Without broken equipment, I didn't know what conversation remained. The next morning, Courtney arrived at my house with a woman carrying a leather folder. They knocked this time. I opened the door, but stayed in the doorway. Courtney smiled in a careful way. "This is Ellen. She helps families with transitions after a loss." The woman extended her hand. "I'm sorry about Barbara." I shook it. "Thank you." Courtney said, "Ellen can look at the house and help identify what might become difficult for you." I didn't ask for that. Ellen looked at Courtney. "I understood Mr. Walton wanted a home assessment." "He does," Courtney said. "He's just been resistant since the funeral." I looked at Ellen. "I don't want a home assessment." Courtney's smile disappeared. "This isn't an appraisal." "I know. No one is valuing anything." I heard her. Ellen closed the folder. "Mr. Walton, I only work with the homeowner's consent. Then we're finished." She nodded. "I apologize for the misunderstanding." Courtney stepped closer to me. "Could you stop doing this in front of people?" "Doing what?" "Making me look dishonest." "You told her I wanted something I didn't want. I told her you needed it. That's different, and it's worse." Ellen said, "I'm going to leave." Courtney turned. "Please wait in the car." "No," Ellen said. "I think it's best if you call my office if circumstances change." She walked back down the path. Courtney waited until Ellen's car door closed. "You can barely keep up with the house." "How would you know? The gutters are full. The gutters get cleaned every spring. The downstairs bathroom light flickers. It needs a bulb. You had old soup in the freezer. That seems to matter a great deal to you. You're making sudden decisions. You won't let anyone help. You're fighting with Jonathan." "Who told you to bring this woman?" "No one." "Did Jonathan know?" "He knew I wanted advice." "That isn't what I asked." She folded her arms. "He knew I was concerned." "Did he know she was coming here?" "No." I nodded. That answer hurt less than the one about the appraiser. Maybe I was getting used to the shape of it. "You need to leave," I said. "Howard, listen to me. If you keep acting impulsively, people are going to wonder whether you're managing." "Which people?" "Family. There are 3 of us in this conversation, and 1 is at work. There are legal ways to protect someone who isn't acting in his own interest." She said it quietly. "Not quite a threat. Close enough." "Are you saying I'm incompetent?" "I'm saying grief can affect judgment. Whose judgment brought an appraiser here without permission?" She looked toward the workshop. "You gave away $2,400 a month for 8 years. Now you're pretending the arrangement victimized you. I chose it, and now you're hurting your son to punish me. I ended your company's permission. You keep separating those things like Jonathan isn't the company. He's also my son. Then act like his father. I am." She shook her head. "No. You're acting like a landlord. Landlords collect rent." That ended the conversation. She walked to her car and shut the door hard enough to shake it. I locked the house after she left. Then I called Jonathan. "Did Courtney tell you she was bringing a home transition consultant here?" He sighed. "She mentioned talking to someone. She told the woman I requested an assessment." "What?" "She also said there are legal ways to protect me from my decisions." There was silence on the line. She shouldn't have said that. Has she spoken to anyone about my competency? "I don't know." "Ask her." "Dad, she's trying to keep everything from collapsing." "That isn't an answer. I'll talk to her. I want you to call me back today." "All right." He didn't call. At 6, I called again. It went to voicemail. At 8, I saw his truck return to the workshop. He stayed inside the office with Courtney. The light remained on past 10. I sat in my home office with the workshop agreement in front of me. My original objective had been simple. I wanted my building back. I wanted Courtney to understand she couldn't plan my life or spend my property. That wasn't enough anymore. If the company left while Jonathan still believed I had destroyed it, Courtney would carry that story into every future conversation. I could win the workshop and lose my son inside the same 30 days. I couldn't make him agree with me. I could make sure he chose what happened next with his eyes open. I poured one quiet glass of bourbon and sat beside Barbara's empty chair. I didn't toast her. I didn't ask what she would do. I wrote one sentence on my legal pad. Jonathan must own the move, the customers, and the truth. The next morning, before the workshop opened, I walked across the yard and slid a note beneath the office door. It asked him to meet me there alone at noon. At 12:15, Jonathan came through the loading door. He looked around the shop. Courtney went to meet Patterson, he said. Good. What's this about? I had cleared one end of the assembly table. The equipment list sat beside a measuring tape, graph paper, and 3 commercial listings I had printed that morning. He picked up the top listing. You told me to call places. I did. Then why are you doing it? I'm not leasing anything. I found choices. He read the page. This one is too small. By how much? Almost a third. Your current shop includes my lumber storage and tool room. We use both. You won't after the deadline. He put down the listing. What do you want from me? I want you to decide whether the company moves or closes. His face hardened. That's not much of a choice. It's the choice you have. You could withdraw the notice. I won't. Then you already decided. I decided what happens to my building. You decide what happens to your company. He looked at the graph paper. What's that? A floor plan for the smallest listing. You've never been inside. The dimensions are on the page. You drew a shop from a rental listing? I drew walls and doors. You decide whether the machines fit. He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he pulled the tape measure from the table. The edge bander needs more clearance than that. Measure it. We started with the largest machines. Jonathan called out dimensions. I marked them on the graph paper. We included working space, material paths, and enough room to turn a full sheet of plywood. The first arrangement didn't fit. He moved the table saw closer to the center. That blocks the loading path, I said. Only when we're cutting full sheets, which is every day. He erased it. We tried again. The smaller shop had no separate finishing room. That remained the main problem. Jonathan drew a temporary partition along the rear wall. The listing says no spraying, I said. We could use water-based finish. You still need ventilation. I could outsource doors and face frames. Could the price carry that? Some jobs. Which ones? He looked toward the project calendar. The Mercer kitchen. Maybe the Riley built-ins. And Patterson. We have to finish Patterson here. Then put that on the move schedule. He took a fresh sheet and drew a line down the center. On one side, he wrote finish here. On the other, he wrote move first. It was the first time I'd seen him make a plan that didn't begin with waiting for me to solve the immediate problem. We worked until almost 2. The company's table saw, edge bander, assembly benches, and hand tools would fit. The large clamp rack would not. Jonathan decided to take the extensions apart and build a wall-mounted system later. My sander stayed with me, so did the compressor, dust collector, and finishing exhaust. He would need a smaller dust system, a compressor, and temporary finishing arrangements. None of that was free, but the company could operate. Jonathan studied the finished drawing. This could work. Yes, barely. Barely still counts. He picked up the listing again. It's $2,400 a month. That's what shops cost. Plus the deposit. Yes. Courtney won't agree. What do you think? He didn't answer right away. I think if we wait another week, we'll have no time to move. That's true. I think we should see it. Then call. He looked at me. Now? Why not? He took out his phone and called the number on the listing. The owner could meet us at 4. Jonathan almost said he needed to check with Courtney. I saw the thought reach his face. Then he said, 4 works. That was the first choice he owned. At 3:30, he drove us across town in his truck. The available shop sat behind an auto parts warehouse. The brick had been painted beige, and the loading door showed dents near the bottom. Inside, the space smelled like cold concrete. Jonathan walked the floor with our drawing. He measured the electrical panel, counted outlets, and checked the loading door clearance. I stood back unless he asked me something. At the rear wall, he pointed toward 2 narrow windows. Could I build a finishing enclosure here? The owner shook his head. No solvent spraying. Insurance won't allow it. What about water-based coatings with filtered ventilation? I'd need plans before I approved anything. Jonathan wrote that down. The office was smaller than Courtney's current office. It held one metal desk and 2 chairs. Jonathan opened the door, looked inside, then closed it. The owner said, "I have another business interested." "How soon do you need an answer?" Jonathan asked. "Application by Friday. Lease starts on the 1st. That left only a short gap before our deadline." Jonathan asked about power, access hours, insurance, and parking. He didn't ask me to speak for him. When we returned to the truck, he sat behind the wheel without starting it. "It's not terrible," he said. "No, it's not the workshop. No, we'd have to reduce orders. Probably. Courtney won't like the office. That's between you and Courtney." He tapped the steering wheel. "If I apply, she'll think I'm taking your side. There aren't sides in a lease application." He looked at me. "You know that's not true. I know she wants it to be untrue." He started the truck. On the drive back, we passed a restaurant where Barbara and I used to have breakfast on Saturdays. I almost pointed it out. Jonathan already knew. He said, "Did Mom really think we were using you? She thought I was making it easy for you not to notice. That sounds like her. She believed you love me." "I do." "I know." He kept both hands on the wheel. "Then why does it seem like you don't?" "Because most of the ways you show it require a machine." He swallowed. "I don't know what you want me to say. Nothing right now?" That was new for me too. I didn't need him to explain himself before he had done anything different. Back at the workshop, Courtney's car was parked near the office. Jonathan turned off the engine. "Let me talk to her. I'm going home. Don't mention the listing. I wasn't planning to." He took the floor plan from between the seats. "Can I keep this? It's yours." I crossed the yard. Halfway to the house, I heard Courtney call my name. She came out of the workshop holding the termination notice. "Did you take him to look at a shop?" "He took me." "You made a floor plan. We made one." She looked at Jonathan, who stood beside his truck. "We can't afford that space," he said. "We can't afford to do nothing. We were going to talk to Howard. We have talked to Howard." "Not when he's like this." I stopped. "Like what?" She turned to me, fixed on one idea. "The idea is written in your agreement. You've made your point. I didn't issue notice to make a point. Then what would it take to withdraw it?" "Nothing." "You don't mean that?" "I do." She held up the notice. "You said you'd help Jonathan plan the move. That means this is personal. It means I'll help my son without paying his company's expenses." Jonathan said, "Courtney, the place could work." Her head turned sharply. "You applied?" "Not yet." "You went there without me?" "We needed measurements." "We?" He glanced at me. Courtney saw it. "Unbelievable," she said. "You've spent one afternoon with him, and now I'm the enemy." "No one said that." "You didn't have to." She walked into the office. Jonathan followed. I returned to my house and closed the door. At 5, Jonathan called. "We're submitting the application," he said. "Good." Courtney agreed. He hesitated. She agreed to let me submit it. "That isn't what I asked." "No." She didn't agree we should move. Did she sign the application? "It only needs one company owner to submit. Can you sign a lease without her?" "No." "Then you don't have a solution yet." "I know." "Still, it's a step." He let out a breath. "She wants a meeting with all 3 of us." "About the lease?" "Everything." "Where?" "Your house." "No." "Dad." "We can meet in the workshop office, not in my house." He was quiet. "All right. And I want a written list of what she wants to discuss. She's going to hate that." "I'm not asking whether she likes it. I'll tell her." That evening, an email arrived from Jonathan. The subject line said, "Meeting topics." The list had 4 items: workshop notice, client preview, new lease, Howard's current decision-making. I printed the email. Then I replied to both of them. I would discuss the first 3 items in the workshop office the next afternoon. I would not debate my basic ability to make decisions. If Courtney had a specific concern, she could state it in writing and attach whatever facts supported it. I pressed send. 10 minutes later, Courtney replied. Her message was only 1 sentence. "You'll receive the facts tomorrow." The next afternoon, I entered the workshop office at 3. Jonathan sat behind the desk. Courtney sat beside him with a folder in her lap. Our floor plan for the smaller shop had been pinned to the wall. She had drawn a red circle around it. "I want to begin with this," she said. The meeting topics were listed in order. I changed the order. I didn't. She gave me a thin smile. "You wanted facts." She opened the folder and removed a printed application bearing the name of the smaller shop. Jonathan had signed it. The owner had approved the company for a lease. Courtney placed the approval on the desk. For 1 second I thought she had accepted the move. Then she slid another page over it. It was a cancellation email she had sent that morning. "I withdrew the application," she said. Jonathan stared at the page. "You did what?" "You weren't authorized to commit the company." "I didn't sign a lease." "You exposed our financial information without approval. We need a shop. We already have one. For less than 3 weeks." She looked directly at me. "Unless the person making that decision is no longer allowed to make it alone." The floor plan was still on the wall behind her. My strategy had worked once. Jonathan had found a place, applied, and secured approval. Now, Courtney knew exactly what she had to stop. Courtney closed the folder. Jonathan was still looking at the cancellation email. "You had no right to do that," he said. "I have every right. I run the business. We both own it. And one of us is thinking past Friday. You canceled the only place that approved us. I canceled an application you submitted behind my back. I told you I was applying. You told me after you went there with him." She pointed toward me without looking away from Jonathan. "This is what he wants. He wants us fighting." "No," I said. "I want you out of my workshop." Her eyes moved to me. "Then let's discuss your decision-making." She removed several pages from the folder. The first was a printed list with dates beside each item. Barbara's death, the memorial, the notice, my refusal to allow the appraisal, my refusal to allow the home assessment, the change in how company mail was handled, the leasing call to Stephen, the canceled client access. Most of it was wrong in small, useful ways. I hadn't canceled client access. I had required permission. I hadn't changed the company's mail. I had told Courtney not to take mine. The dates made ordinary boundaries look like a string of disturbances. Jonathan picked up the list. "What is this?" "Documentation." "For what?" Howard asked for specific concerns in writing. "I meant concerns you could explain," I said. "I am explaining them." She placed another document on the desk. It was a petition asking the circuit court to appoint someone to manage my financial affairs and personal decisions. I read my name at the top. The room seemed to narrow around the page. Jonathan stood so quickly his chair hit the wall. "You filed this?" "Yes." "You said you were getting advice." "I got advice. You said nothing about filing. You wouldn't listen." He picked up the petition and turned through the pages. "You put my name here as the proposed family member. I didn't agree to this. You said your father wasn't acting like himself. I said he was angry. You said he was making decisions that could destroy the company. That doesn't mean he can't make them." She faced me. "This doesn't declare anything. It asks for an evaluation. You asked a court to take my decisions away. I asked for protection until we know you're well. You know I'm well. I know you're grieving." Jonathan dropped the pages on the desk. "Withdraw it." "No." "Courtney, someone has to be responsible." "He is responsible," Jonathan said. "That's the problem. He knows exactly what he's doing." She looked at him as if he had betrayed her. "You're choosing him. I'm telling you not to make me part of this. You're already part of it. Your company is about to lose its shop because he decided to punish me. The notice was legal. You sound just like him." I stayed in my chair. The petition contained no secret evidence. No doctor had examined me. No one claimed I had forgotten my name or lost money. Courtney had listed things she had witnessed and arranged them to suggest I was unsafe. Old food in the freezer, unopened mail, a flickering light, refusing professional help, sudden hostility toward family. She had also written that I was disposing of business relationships without understanding their value. That meant the workshop. "You called the agreement a business relationship," I said. "It is one. Then you admit I understood what I was ending." "That's not how this works." "How does it work?" "You don't get to argue your way out of concern." Jonathan pressed both hands against the desk. "Did you speak to a doctor?" "No." "Did you speak to Dad's doctor?" "They wouldn't discuss him with me." "So you filed this without anyone saying he's impaired." "I spoke to a filing clerk about the process." "That isn't evidence. It's a first step." The words sat between us. This wasn't another pamphlet on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a consultant who could close her folder and leave. Courtney had put my name into a public process. I looked at the final page. You signed this yesterday? Yes. That was after I refused Ellen. It was after a pattern became clear. Did you tell Ellen you planned to use her visit as part of that pattern? I didn't use her report. She didn't make a report. Exactly. Jonathan paced once across the little office. Withdraw it, he said again. Courtney shook her head. We need time. For what? To stabilize everything. The company, the family. What does that mean? She looked at me. If Howard withdraws the notice and agrees to an evaluation, I'll ask the court to dismiss the petition. There it was. The workshop in exchange for my independence. I didn't answer. Jonathan said, You can't bargain with this. I'm offering a reasonable solution. You filed against my father. I filed to protect him. From ending our free rent. From an impulsive decision. Jonathan picked up the petition and held it toward her. You listed the company on 4 pages. Because it's the largest financial decision he has made. It costs him money to let us stay. It doesn't cost him cash. It costs $2,400 a month. She turned to him. That number came from Howard. It came from the market. Since when do you care about the market? Since I saw the shop. The shop you can't afford. We could have figured it out. With what money? The Mercer deposit left enough for the application. No, it didn't. He stopped. What did you do? I paid the preview vendors and ordered material for the Riley job. You paid them early? I protected our commitments. We needed that money for a deposit. We need customers to believe we're stable. You knew I was applying. I knew you were panicking. Jonathan took out his phone and opened the company banking screen. He stared at it. You used all of it, not all. There isn't enough for first month and deposit. We're not moving. The money hadn't vanished into a hidden account. It had gone into the public event Courtney believed would defeat the notice, and into materials for work she had booked beyond it. She had made retreat more expensive for the company, then used that expense to argue retreat was impossible. Jonathan set his phone on the desk. We can't get that listing now. It's already canceled. Call the owner. No? Courtney, I said no. He looked at me. For years, that look would have sent me toward my checkbook. I felt the old response rise. A deposit. 1 month's rent. A short loan until Patterson paid. I had the money. That was what made the choice difficult. If I paid, the company could move. Jonathan would avoid fighting with his wife. Courtney would tell herself the system still worked. I would become useful again before the day ended. I put both hands on the arms of the chair and stood. I won't fund the lease, I said. Jonathan looked away. Courtney gave a small nod, like I had confirmed something for her list. You see, she said, he would rather watch the company fail. No, Jonathan said. Stop. He has the money. It isn't his company. Then why is he deciding whether we survive? Because we built it around his property. Courtney went still. Jonathan continued. We did this. We kept booking because the shop was free. We priced jobs because the shop was free. We didn't save enough to move because we thought he'd never make us. She stared at him. You're doing this here? I'm saying what happened. You think admitting failure will make him love you more? Leave that out of it. It's the only thing in it. I picked up my copy of the petition. Is this the family meeting you wanted? Courtney folded her arms. This is a chance to resolve things. The notice remains. Then so does the petition. Jonathan said my name quietly. I looked at him. I told you to make your choice with your eyes open, I said. Now you know what staying costs. What about what leaving costs? You know that too. I walked out of the office. Courtney followed me onto the shop floor. If you continue, the court may restrict what you can do with the property. That hasn't happened. It could. If it does, I'll deal with it. Your neighbors will know. That was the first honest cost she named. A court filing in a town like Staunton doesn't stay private for long. People I'd worked for might see my name. Suppliers knew our family. Church friends knew the business operated behind my house. You'll have to hire someone, she said. I know. You'll have to be examined. If required, Jonathan will have to testify. I stopped near the loading door. That choice belongs to Jonathan. She lowered her voice. You can end all of it right now. So can you. You caused this. You filed it. She stood beneath the fluorescent lights with her arms crossed. I'm not withdrawing anything until the workshop notice is withdrawn. Then we understand each other. I walked back to the house. An envelope from the circuit court arrived 2 days later. I opened it at the kitchen table. The petition had been accepted for review. It included a date for the first hearing and a notice explaining my right to respond. I placed it beside the workshop agreement. Jonathan called that evening. Are you all right? He asked. I'm angry. I mean about the papers. I received them. Courtney says this can still go away. Can it? She'll withdraw if you give us more time. How much? 6 months? No. 3? No. Could you give us until the end of summer? The notice says 30 days. You're really going to fight the petition. Yes, that costs money. I know. And if they decide against you, then I'll live with what follows. He was silent. I didn't agree to be named, he said. Then tell the court. That puts me against Courtney. No, it tells the truth about what you agreed to. What do you want me to say? Whatever is true. He breathed into the phone for a few seconds. I'm sorry, I know. It wasn't enough, but I didn't say that. After the call, I returned to my office. I made a copy of the court notice. I placed the original in the locked file cabinet with Barbara's inventory notebook. Then I took out the workshop agreement and read the termination provision once more. Courtney had canceled the available shop. She had spent the money Jonathan hoped to use. She had placed my judgment before a court and offered to stop only if I restored the arrangement. For the first time, the full price of using that one provision was in front of me. I signed the response form, stating that I opposed the petition. Then I wrote the termination date at the top of my calendar in ink. The next morning, I called a local attorney. I chose a woman whose office was near the courthouse. I had built bookshelves for her reception area years earlier, but we didn't know each other socially. Her assistant gave me an appointment that afternoon. I brought the petition, the workshop agreement, the equipment list, the notice, and the email about the meeting. I also brought the caterer's name and the preview invitation. The attorney read everything before she asked questions. Did anyone pressure you to sign the original agreement? She asked. No. Did Jonathan or Courtney object to the month-to-month terms when they signed? No. Did you personally deliver the notice? To Jonathan at my house. Did he accept it? Yes. Has the company continued using the workshop? Every day. She turned to the petition. Has any court found you unable to manage your affairs? No. Has any doctor told you that? No. Have you given Jonathan or Courtney power to make property decisions for you? No. She nodded and placed the petition beside the agreement. Filing this petition did not remove your rights. It also did not suspend the notice. That removed the question Courtney had been using against me. Can they claim the notice is invalid because I'm grieving? I asked. They can claim anything. A claim isn't a ruling. What happens if the court eventually agrees with her? That process takes evidence. It doesn't happen because a relative dislikes a decision. I looked at the page carrying my name. She offered to withdraw it if I let the company stay. Did she put that in writing? No. Jonathan heard it. The attorney made a note. Do you want to use that against her? What would that mean? It could matter when we respond. It may help show why she filed. I thought about Courtney standing in the workshop office. I thought about Jonathan between us, reading a petition that named him without his agreement. I want the petition answered, I said. I don't want to turn it into a second fight. It is already a second fight. I know. I don't want it to become the way I get the shop back. She understood. The agreement is enough for the shop, she said. Keep the issues separate. That was exactly what I needed to hear. She asked whether I wanted her to represent me in the competency matter. I said yes. Her fee wasn't ruinous, but it wasn't small. I wrote a check from my own account. For years, I had paid to keep Jonathan's machines running. Now I was paying because his wife had asked a court to question whether I could make my own decisions. The attorney gave me a receipt. Do not lock them out early, she said. Do not remove their property. Do not cut power or interfere with existing access before the deadline. I wasn't planning to. Good. Also, don't contact their customers to explain the dispute. I haven't. On the termination date, document the condition of the building, count the keys. If they refuse to leave, call me before you take any other action. So the notice works. The notice works if you follow it. Authority wasn't going to empty the workshop for me. No one was going to arrive with a badge and teach Courtney a lesson. The agreement gave me a right. I still had to exercise it without losing control of myself. Before I left, the attorney looked at the preview invitation. This event is scheduled for the final day? Yes, you can refuse access after the termination time. I know. Or you can give written permission for the event only. That doesn't extend the workshop agreement. I don't want another agreement. Then make your consent simple. Date, hours, purpose. State that it changes nothing else. I put the invitation back in my folder. On the drive home, I considered canceling the preview. It would have been easy. One call to the caterer, one email to Courtney. Clients could arrive at a locked gate and learn exactly how badly she had planned. That would hurt her. It would also hurt Jonathan, the employees, the caterer, and people who had accepted an invitation without knowing any of this. Cruelty would have been quicker. It wouldn't have given me what I wanted. At home, I walked through the workshop with my phone and photographed every wall, machine, cabinet, and door. I didn't hide what I was doing. Jonathan watched from the table saw. "Lawyer told you to do that?" he asked. "She told me to document the condition. Courtney's going to say you're building a case. I'm making a record. Same thing to her. It doesn't have to be the same thing to you." He shut off the saw. "What did the lawyer say about the petition?" "That filing, it didn't change my rights." "So? The notice still counts?" "Yes." He nodded as if he had expected that. "Did you tell Courtney?" he asked. "Not yet. Let me. Why? She'll hear it better from me." I lowered the phone. "Will she hear the truth?" He looked toward the office. "I don't know." "Then you're not asking to tell her. You're asking for time to soften it." "Maybe. The deadline doesn't get softer." He removed his safety glasses. I called the owner of the smaller shop. What did he say? He accepted another application after ours was canceled. "Is it gone?" "Not signed yet." "What do you need?" "Courtney's signature and the deposit." "Do you have the deposit?" "Not anymore." I waited. He gave a tired laugh. "I know. You're not paying." "No, I wasn't asking. That's progress." He almost smiled. Then he looked back at the saw. "I have a cabinet delivery tomorrow. After that, I'm going to look at 2 smaller spaces." "Good. One is outside town." "Can your employees reach it?" "Probably." "Ask them. I will." He put his glasses back on. "Dad, if we move, will you still let us hold the preview here?" That was the first time he said, "If we move," without sounding like the words belonged to me. "I'll allow the preview from 3 until 6 on the final day." His head came up. Courtney said, "You wouldn't," she guessed. "What are the conditions?" "The workshop must be cleared of production equipment before guests arrive. Nothing gets built or stored here afterward. At 6, all company keys come back to me. That's a lot to move before an event. You have the full notice period. Can we leave display cabinets for the preview if they leave with you that evening? And the caterer? They can enter at noon to set up." He considered it. "I need that in writing?" "Yes." He seemed surprised I agreed. "I'm not trying to trap you," I said. "I didn't say you were. You thought it." He looked toward the office again. "Courtney thinks the preview will change your mind. It won't. She says once you see customers and suppliers, you'll remember the company is bigger than this argument. The company may be bigger than the argument. It is not bigger than the agreement. What if she announces future work here? Then she'll be lying." "What do you expect me to do?" "That choice belongs to you." He pulled off his glasses again. "You keep saying that. Because you keep handing choices to somebody else." He flinched. I hadn't said it to hurt him. It still did. "I'm going back to work," he said. I finished taking photographs and returned to the house. I wrote a short permission for the preview. It listed the hours, the loading access for the caterer, and the requirement that every guest and company item leave by 6. It said the permission did not extend the workshop use agreement. I made 3 copies. That evening, Jonathan and Courtney came to the house. I met them on the side step. I didn't invite them inside. I handed each of them a copy. Courtney read the first paragraph. "So, you admit the preview can happen. I'm allowing it. Because you know canceling would make you look unreasonable. Because guests didn't create this problem." She read the rest. "You expect us to move every machine before the event?" "Yes." "Then what are clients previewing? Your work. They're coming to see the shop. They're coming because you invited them." She pointed to the final line. "This says keys returned at 6. "Yes." "We can't clear catering and displays by 6. Then end the event earlier. The invitations say 3 to 7. That was your promise, not mine." Jonathan looked at his copy. "We can change the reminder email to say 3 to 5:30. Courtney turned on him. "We're not changing anything. We need time to clear out." We're not clearing out. The notice is valid. Her face changed. You spoke to the lawyer? He nodded. She looked at me. You involved him in your legal meeting? No. Then how does he know? I told him what my attorney confirmed. Courtney folded the paper. This proves nothing. It proves what I'm allowing. The petition hasn't been decided. It doesn't suspend my rights. We'll see. Jonathan said, Courtney, stop. She faced him. You're letting him dismantle our company. No, I'm trying to keep enough of it to move. You don't even know where we're going. I'm looking tomorrow. Instead of finishing Riley, the materials you ordered don't arrive until Monday. That's not the point. It is if we have nowhere to put them. She looked from him to me. You planned this together. Jonathan shook his head. No. Dad gave notice. I ignored it. Then I ran out of time. For once, he didn't soften the sentence. Courtney walked toward her car. Jonathan stayed on the step. Are you coming? She asked. In a minute. She got into the car and shut the door. He watched her through the windshield. Do you really expect me to say something at the preview? He asked. I expect customers not to be misled. That isn't an answer. It's the only answer I'm giving you. What if saying it hurts the company? Promising them a workshop you no longer have will hurt it more. He folded his copy carefully and put it in his pocket. I'll look at the other spaces tomorrow. Call before you drive out. Confirm they're still available. I know. He started toward the car. Jonathan, he turned. When the time comes, I'm not taking those keys from Courtney. I'm taking them from you. He looked down at the company key ring clipped to his belt. Why me? Because you signed the agreement as my son and as an owner. His fingers closed around the keys. If I give them back, this is permanent. Yes. And if I don't, then I enforce the notice. He nodded slowly. I could see that he understood what I was asking. The keys were metal. Returning them would end more than access. He joined Courtney in the car. I watched them leave, then went inside and placed my copy of the preview permission beside the workshop agreement. The single provision had survived the petition, the canceled application, and the public event Courtney had built around it. Using it would cost me the last ordinary reason my son still came through my yard. I locked the file cabinet anyway. At 7 the next morning, Jonathan called from outside town. The second place is available, he said. What's wrong with it? It's half the size, no finishing room. The loading door is narrow. What's right with it? The power works. The owner allows cabinet work. Rent is $2,400. Can your machines fit? The important ones. Will Courtney sign? I haven't asked yet. Then you don't have a shop. I know. He sounded steadier than he had before. I'm measuring everything today, he said. I'll send her the numbers. Good. The days that followed were louder than usual. A moving crew took the edge bander. Jonathan and his employees broke down the workbenches and stacked the tops against the wall. An electrician disconnected the company's table saw. I opened the electrical panel when asked. I identified which airlines belonged to my compressor. I showed the movers how the loading door track caught near the floor. I didn't repair anything. I didn't lend Jonathan money. I did help him carry a cabinet that wouldn't clear the office door. We turned it sideways, removed the handles, and worked it through without scratching the paint. Thanks, he said. You asked. That became our new pattern for those final days. He asked for a specific kind of help. I either agreed or refused. There were no hints. Courtney spent most of her time in the office. She made calls with the door closed. Preview signs arrived with the workshop address printed beneath the company logo. I saw one leaning against the wall. Those can't stay after Saturday, I said. They won't, Jonathan answered. Courtney didn't look up from her computer. 3 days before the deadline, I found Jonathan removing the extensions from the clamp rack. Did you get the smaller place? I asked. The owner approved us. Did both of you sign? Not yet. He loosened a bolt. Courtney says she'll sign after the preview. Why after? She thinks we'll have stronger sales. That doesn't make the shop larger. No. Do you believe she'll sign? He put the wrench down. I believe she'll have no choice. She has choices. So do I. He picked up the wrench again. That was all he said. On Friday afternoon, the workshop looked almost empty. My machines remained along the west wall. The company's display cabinet stood near the entrance for the preview. Sample doors had been arranged on cloth-covered tables. The office still held Courtney's computer, files, and white cabinets. Jonathan said those would be loaded after the event. At 5, the caterer called to confirm noon access. I approved it. Courtney sent a reminder email saying the preview would run from 3 until 7. Jonathan forwarded it to me with one sentence. I told her it ends at 6. I printed the email and placed it in my folder. Saturday arrived warm and clear. At noon, 2 catering vans pulled into the yard. I opened the loading door and watched the staff carry in trays, drink tubs, folding tables, and boxes of glasses. I kept out of their way. Jonathan arrived in a clean blue shirt and dark trousers. The company keyring was clipped to his belt. He walked through the shop, checking corners and cabinets. Everything that belongs to the company is either on display or in the office, he said. And the loading area? Clear. Employee key? He held up the ring. Returned yesterday. Courtney's key? She has it. I'm collecting all 3 from you. I know. He looked at the empty space where the table saw had stood. It sounds different in here. The workshop had always carried a low electrical hum. With the company machines gone, I could hear birds outside and the caterer arranging forks. Where are the machines? I asked. Storage unit. So you still need the lease? Yes. Has Courtney signed? No. I nodded. He looked at my folder. Are you going to show people the agreement? Only if I need to. She thinks you will. I'm not holding a hearing. He gave a short laugh. That's not what this feels like. It's a client preview. Keep it 1. At 2:30, Courtney arrived. She wore a green dress and carried a box of printed programs. A small gold name badge was pinned near her shoulder. She saw me near the loading door. You're staying? She asked. It's my workshop. You said guests didn't need to know the dispute. They don't. Then don't interfere. I won't, unless you promise access you don't have. She walked past me. The programs carried the same workshop drawing as the invitations. Beneath it, Courtney had printed, "Building the next season together." Jonathan picked one up. What is this? Our presentation. What presentation? The one we give every year. You changed the title. It needed energy. He opened it. His face went still. What did you write? Nothing that isn't true. He handed me the program. Inside was a short paragraph about the company's future. It said they would expand their seasonal collection and continue welcoming clients at the Walton workshop. I returned it to Courtney. That isn't true. It will be. No? She adjusted the stack against her hip. You agreed to the preview. I agreed to today. People don't care about contract language, Howard. They care whether the company is stable. Then tell them where it will operate. We're operating here right now, for less than 3 hours. Jonathan stepped between us. Remove that paragraph. The programs are printed. Then don't hand them out. We paid for them. Courtney, she looked at him. If you want the smaller shop, we need deposits today. Promising this workshop is not how we get them. Let me handle the business. I have. The words came out quietly. She turned away and carried the programs to the entry table. At 3, the first guests arrived. They were ordinary people, a couple renovating a kitchen, a supplier who sold hinges, a designer from downtown, former customers who wanted to see new samples and eat free food. They shook my hand and told me they were sorry about Barbara. I thanked them. No one knew the company was relocating. Courtney moved through the room with a smile. She introduced clients to each other and directed attention toward the display cabinets. She was good at that work. I could see why Jonathan had let her handle it for so long. Jonathan spoke with suppliers near the sample tables. He kept checking the clock. At 4, more people arrived than I expected. Cars filled the gravel area and lined one side of the yard. Courtney handed out every program. Jonathan watched people open them. He said nothing. I stayed beside the loading door with my folder under one arm. Around 5, the caterer began collecting empty trays. Guests gathered near the office for the usual presentation. Courtney stood in front of the workshop drawing. Jonathan took his place a few feet away. She thanked everyone for coming. She spoke about a difficult season and the value of loyal clients. She mentioned Barbara's death without using her name at first. Our family has been through a painful loss, she said. There have been questions about change, as there always are when grief is fresh. Jonathan looked at her. She continued, but this company was built on family. It was built here, in this workshop, with the support of people who understood that good work takes patience. Several guests nodded. Courtney smiled toward me. We've had some private uncertainty, but I'm happy to tell you that the Walton workshop will remain the home of our next season. There it was. She had waited until the room was full. She believed I would protect Jonathan from embarrassment, even if it meant surrendering my own decision. Now she was using Barbara's absence to promise away my workshop in front of 80 people. I didn't speak. Jonathan did. "No," he said. Courtney turned her head. He stepped forward. "That isn't correct." The room became quiet. Courtney lowered her voice. "Jonathan, we'll discuss it afterward. We already discussed it." She kept smiling, but the expression no longer reached her eyes. He faced the guests. "The company is leaving this workshop today." A supplier near the front looked down at his program. Jonathan continued. "My father gave us written notice 30 days ago. Our permission to use the building ends at 6. Courtney reached for his arm. He moved away. "We've been looking for another space," he said. "We haven't completed a lease yet." Someone near the sample tables asked, "What happens to current jobs?" Jonathan swallowed. "We will finish them. Some dates will change. I promised schedules before I knew where production would happen, and that was my responsibility." Courtney said, "We don't need to discuss internal matters. They're not internal if customers were given dates." She stared at him. He looked at the gathered clients again. "We're reducing the number of projects we accept. Anyone with an active contract will hear from me directly by Monday. If a delay doesn't work for you, we'll discuss it honestly." No one applauded. That made it feel real. A customer asked whether the company was closing. "No," Jonathan said. "We're moving into a smaller operation." Courtney spoke quickly. "The new location is still being finalized." Jonathan nodded. "That part is true." People began asking questions in low voices. He answered what he could. He didn't blame Courtney. He didn't blame me. He didn't use grief as an explanation. He owned the promises. At 5:30, the caterer began moving equipment toward the vans. Some guests left immediately. Others stayed to speak with Jonathan. A designer handed him a business card and told him to call when he had the new address. Courtney stood beside the office door, holding the remaining programs. At 5:45, she went inside and shut the door. Jonathan followed. I stayed where I was. They argued quietly. I couldn't hear every word. I heard Courtney say, "You destroyed us." Jonathan answered, "No." I stopped lying. At 5:55, the office door opened. Jonathan carried the computer monitor. One employee carried a box of files. They loaded both into Jonathan's truck. Courtney came out last with her purse. She walked past me without speaking. Jonathan checked the office, the bathroom, and the storage cabinets. Then he closed the loading door. The final guests left at 2 minutes before 6. The caterer's van pulled onto Tam Street. At 6, Jonathan stood with me outside the workshop. Courtney waited beside her car. He unclipped the keyring from his belt. He removed his own key, Courtney's key, and the employee key. He placed all 3 in my open hand. "We're out," he said. I closed my fingers around them. The mechanism was no more dramatic than that. 30 days had passed. The written permission ended. The keys came home. Courtney lost the venue she had promised, and the free workshop that made those promises profitable. Jonathan looked at the locked loading door. "I'll call the smaller place Monday," he said. "You should?" He nodded. Courtney called from the car. He walked toward her, then stopped and looked back at me. For the first time in 8 years, there was no company reason for him to return. He didn't come back that night. On Sunday morning, I unlocked the workshop and went through every room. The company had left no machines, files, or customer property. The floor showed pale rectangles where equipment had stood. A few screws lay beneath the assembly table. Sawdust had collected behind the office door. I photographed everything. Then I counted the keys and wrote 3 returned on my copy of the equipment list. The preview programs had been removed except for one near the trash bin. Someone had stepped on it. The workshop drawing was creased through the middle. I put it in the trash. The white cabinets in the office remained. Courtney had paid to install them, but they had been fastened to my wall. The agreement said fixed improvement stayed unless we agreed otherwise. I called Jonathan. He answered on the second ring. Did Courtney intend to take the office cabinets? I don't know. Ask her. Can we do this tomorrow? No. I'm documenting the building today. He sighed. I'll ask. He called back 10 minutes later. She wants them. Then she needs to remove them by 5 today and repair the wall. She says they're worth more than the wall repair. That doesn't answer me. She wants you to pay for them. No. I knew you'd say that. Then why did you ask? Because she told me to. I waited. He corrected himself. Because I agreed to ask. Better? He was quiet. We'll leave them, he said. All right. Is there anything else? Not in the workshop. He ended the call. That afternoon, I swept the floor. I hadn't cleaned the whole shop alone in years. The work took longer than I expected. My shoulders hurt by the time I reached the finishing room. I found a set of company spray tips on a shelf. I placed them in a small box and wrote Jonathan's name on it. I didn't carry the box to his house. He could collect it when he asked. On Monday, the company began calling customers. I knew because 2 of them called me. The first wanted to confirm that Jonathan no longer had access to the workshop. I told her that was correct. Is the company closing? She asked. You need to ask Jonathan. Would you hire him? The question surprised me. For cabinet work? Yes. He does good work. What about everything that happened Saturday? That was about the location. She thanked me and ended the call. The second caller was angry about a delayed installation. He wanted to know whether I would guarantee the company's contract. No, I said. But you're Jonathan's father. Yes. The company worked from your property. It did. So you're involved. I'm not an owner, employee, or guarantor. He paused. Did you know they were taking deposits? I knew they had contracted work. You need to discuss your payment with them. I gave him Jonathan's number, though I knew he already had it. That call showed me how far the free arrangement had blurred things. Customers saw the workshop, the family name, and my presence. They assumed I stood behind every promise. Ending access did not erase that overnight. Jonathan called that evening. Patterson wants a reduction, he said. I know. He called you? Yes. What did you tell him? To speak with you. Thank you. I waited. We're giving him the reduction, Jonathan said. Mercer accepted a later date. Riley may cancel. What will you do if Riley cancels? Return what we haven't spent, and what you spent on materials. We'll either use them or negotiate. He sounded exhausted, but he had answers. Did you call the smaller shop? I asked. Yes, and? The other applicant didn't sign. Did Courtney? An hour ago. The company had a lease. When do you move in? We get access tomorrow. 2,400? Yes. Can you carry it? Not with the same number of orders. What are you cutting? Anything that requires custom finishing for now. No more overlapping kitchens. Fewer consultations. What does Courtney think? That we're giving up growth. What do you think? I think we were selling work faster than I could build it. That sentence would have made Barbara nod. I didn't say so. Do you need the spray tips? I asked. I wondered where those went. They're in a box inside the workshop. Can I come tomorrow? Call first. He paused. All right. No one asked me for the deposit. No one asked me to cover the moving crew. I knew the company had paid those costs from Jonathan and Courtney's own money. Jonathan told me later that they had stopped paying themselves for a short time and delayed a new equipment purchase. That was difficult for them. It was also theirs. On Tuesday morning, my attorney called. Courtney's lawyer had contacted her. Courtney was willing to dismiss the competency petition. Did she give a reason? I asked. She says the family dispute has stabilized. The workshop ended. Yes. Will the court record say she was wrong? No. A voluntary dismissal means the petition ends without a decision. So, there's no finding either way. Correct. What about my legal fees? You remain responsible for them, unless you choose to pursue reimbursement. I thought about it. Courtney had forced me to spend money defending a right I already had. Asking her to repay it would be fair. It would also keep us tied together through another dispute. End it, I said. My attorney filed the response accepting dismissal. Authority didn't punish Courtney. It didn't clear my name with a speech. The process simply stopped. The cost stayed with me. Courtney came to the house that afternoon. She knocked and waited. I opened the door. My lawyer says you agreed to dismiss, she said. You filed it. You're dismissing it. You know what I mean. Yes. She held a padded envelope. These are Barbara's earrings. I looked at it but didn't take it. Why do you have them? She loaned them to me for a dinner last year. Why didn't you return them? I forgot. Did you remember before the appraisal? Her eyes narrowed. That's why I brought them. I took the envelope and opened it. The earrings were small gold leaves. Barbara had worn them at Jonathan's wedding. I placed them on the hall table. Thank you. Courtney looked past me into the house. The company signed the lease. Jonathan told me. We had to use personal money for the deposit. I assumed you would. You could have prevented that? Yes. She waited for more. I didn't give it. Jonathan thinks this is some kind of fresh start, she said. For the company, for you and him. I haven't said that. He thinks because he handed you the keys, everything is settled. The workshop is settled. And the rest takes longer. She folded her arms. I'm not apologizing for being practical. I didn't ask you to. I was trying to protect our future. You tried to use my house, my workshop, and a court process without my consent. I thought you were making a mistake. You were allowed to think that. You don't get to act like you were the only person hurt. I haven't. She looked at Barbara's earrings on the table. I lost her too. You did? That answer seemed to bother her more than an argument would have. She picked up her purse. I won't be coming here for a while. All right, you could ask me not to leave. I could, but you won't. No. She opened the side door. Before stepping outside, she said, The company will survive. I hope it does. She left. There was no apology. There was no sudden understanding. Courtney withdrew because the workshop was gone, and the petition had failed to change that. She kept believing my boundary was an attack on her. That was the outcome of our relationship. A week later, the court mailed confirmation that the petition had been dismissed. I read the page and placed it in the file cabinet. Then, I removed Barbara's household inventory notebook. I opened to the jewelry section and found the gold leaf earrings. Beside them, Barbara had written, loaned to Courtney for supplier dinner. She had dated the entry. Barbara had known exactly where they were. I crossed out the loan note and wrote, returned. The act felt less satisfying than I expected. I put the earrings in Barbara's jewelry box and returned the notebook to the cabinet. That evening, Jonathan called from the new shop. We finished moving the edge bander, he said. How was the door? Tight. We removed the fence. Did you mark the alignment before taking it apart? Yes. Good. He waited. I'm not calling because something broke, he said. You called to tell me about a machine. That's different. A little. He laughed once, then neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, Courtney told me she returned the earrings. She did. I didn't know she had them. I believe you. I'm getting tired of hearing that. What would you rather hear? I don't know. You keep telling me what you didn't know. Start deciding what you intend to know. He took that without arguing. I reviewed every active contract, he said. I'm checking the account each morning. I'm approving schedules before they go out. That's good. We canceled the next preview. You don't have to report company decisions to me. I know. Then why are you? Maybe I want you to know I'm doing something. I sat at the kitchen table. Doing something matters. Is it enough? For what? He didn't answer. I could hear the empty sound of the smaller shop around him. I have your spray tips, I said. You never collected them. I'll come tomorrow. Call first. I will. The next morning, he called from the driveway. When I opened the workshop, he stayed near the door. The box sat on my assembly table. He picked it up. I found these in storage, he said. He handed me a canvas tool roll. Inside were 4 of my chisels, a marking gauge, and Barbara's pruning shears. I touched the worn red handles. How did those get there? You brought them out one spring to sharpen them. I guess they ended up with our tools. I remembered Barbara standing in the garden, waiting while I put an edge back on the blades. Jonathan shifted the box under his arm. I'm sorry about more than the shears, he said. I know. He looked disappointed. I closed the tool roll. An apology tells me you understand yesterday, I said. I need to see what you do tomorrow. He nodded. Can I come by Sunday? What for? Nothing. I looked at him. He held my eyes this time. Just coffee, he said. All right. He left with the spray tips. I carried Barbara's pruning shears into the house and set them beside the kitchen sink, where I could see them while I waited for Sunday. Sunday morning, Jonathan arrived at 9 with 2 cups of coffee. He knocked. I opened the door and looked at his hands. No invoice, no box of damaged parts, no folded project drawing, he noticed. I said coffee, he said. You did. I let him in. He placed 1 cup in front of me and sat at the kitchen table. For the first few minutes, we talked about nothing important. The weather, a road closure downtown, the new shop's parking problem. Then the conversation stopped. Jonathan looked toward the pruning shears beside the sink. Mom used to leave those outside, he said, every time. And then blame me when they rusted. You usually left them there. Not every time. Most times. He smiled into his coffee. I could have used that moment to ask about Courtney. I could have asked whether the company was paying its bills or whether the smaller shop was working. I didn't. Jonathan had come without a task. I needed to let that be enough for one morning. He stayed 40 minutes. At the door, he said, "Same time next Sunday, if you want." I do. He came the next Sunday too. The third Sunday, he called at 8:30. "I can't make it," he said. "All right. We have to finish Mercer. You don't need permission to work. I know. I didn't want you waiting. That mattered more than the missed coffee." The company's first months in the smaller shop were difficult. Riley canceled. Jonathan and Courtney returned the unused part of the deposit and worked out the rest. Patterson accepted a price reduction after the cabinets were installed. Mercer waited for the later date. Jonathan told me those things over coffee, not because he wanted money, but because he was trying to stop hiding the parts that made him feel unsuccessful. They reduced their orders. They outsourced finishing when a job required solvent coatings. They bought a used dust collector instead of asking for mine. The rent came due every month. They paid it. Courtney did not come to my house. She didn't call about the earrings, the petition, or the workshop. If Jonathan mentioned our Sunday coffee, she changed the subject. I didn't send messages through him. One afternoon, I received a formal change of address notice from the company. Their mail now went to the commercial shop. The notice contained no personal note. I filed it with the old agreement. The lilies lasted a few more days after the appraisal visit. I changed their water until the stems softened and the blossoms turned brown at the edges. Then I carried them to the compost pile. No one returned to value Barbara's furniture. I kept the inventory notebook locked away, but I began using it when I was ready. I gave 2 of Barbara's garden books to the woman from the garden club. I donated coats she hadn't worn in years. I kept her blue raincoat by the side door through summer because I wasn't ready to move it. Those decisions came one at a time. They belonged to me. In early June, Jonathan called on a Wednesday evening. "The used dust collector is making a grinding sound," he said. I looked at the clock. "What do you need?" There was a pause. "I was going to ask if you could listen to it. I don't maintain company equipment, I know. Then what do you need? Do you still have the number for the technician from Harrisonburg?" "Yes." "Could you send it?" "I can do that." I texted the number. He thanked me and called the technician himself. The next Sunday, he told me the motor bearing had failed. "What did it cost?" I asked. "Enough to make me start a maintenance calendar." "Which day?" "Friday," I smiled. He laughed. "That was your day, wasn't it?" "It was the day I told you to use." I should have listened. "Yes." He waited for me to soften it. I didn't need to. A month later, he invited me to see the new shop. The invitation was direct. "Come by Saturday at 11, he said. "I want to show you what we changed. Do you need help?" "No." "Is anything broken?" "No." "Then I'll come." The beige building looked better than it had during our first visit. They had painted the loading door and repaired the dents near the bottom. The company name was on a modest sign beside the entrance. Jonathan met me outside. He used his own key to unlock the door. Inside, the table saw stood near the center without blocking the loading path. The edge bander fit along one wall. The clamp extensions had been rebuilt into a narrow vertical rack. A small dust collector stood in the rear corner. It was loud, but it worked. "You were right about the table saw," he said. "We tried it near the wall first. I know." "How?" "The floor marks." He looked down and laughed. The office held Courtney's metal desk, 2 chairs, and half the white cabinets from my workshop. I stopped. "I thought you left those." "We did." "Then how are they here?" "I built new ones." "The handles were different. The doors were narrower. You copied the design. It was a good design." Courtney sat at the desk, reviewing invoices. She looked up. "Hello, Howard. Hello, Courtney." That was all. She didn't apologize. She didn't invite me to sit. She also didn't tell me I had destroyed the company. The space itself had answered that claim. They had less room, fewer projects, and higher monthly costs. They also had a business that stood without my property beneath it. Jonathan showed me the temporary finishing area they used for water-based coatings. The landlord had approved the filtered ventilation after seeing their plans. "You drew this?" I asked. "I did. It's clean. I checked the rules before I built it." That helps." He leaned against the wall. "I understand why you wouldn't come fix things now. Do you? I used to think it cost you nothing. It cost time, and parts, and attention." He nodded. "I thought, because you could do it, you should want to. Sometimes I did. That made it confusing. For both of us." He looked through the office window. Courtney had her back to us. "She still thinks you chose the hardest way." "I chose the only way she believed." That's what I told her. I didn't ask what Courtney said. Before I left, Jonathan handed me a small maple box. "What's this?" "Nothing expensive." I opened it. Inside was a new sharpening stone. "Your old one is worn hollow," he said. "How do you know?" "I've used it for years. That explains why it's worn." He smiled. "I bought my own too." I accepted the gift. It was useful, but it didn't create a debt. By late summer, our Sunday coffee had become fairly regular. Sometimes Jonathan came to my house. Sometimes we met at the restaurant Barbara and I used to visit. We didn't talk about the workshop every week. We talked about baseball, road repairs, and a cabinet door he had rebuilt 3 times because the grain bothered him. Once, he canceled because Courtney wanted him home. He told me plainly. Another time, he asked whether I wanted to join them for dinner. "Does Courtney know you're asking?" I said. "Yes." "Was it her idea?" "No." "Does she want me there?" "She said she can be civil. That isn't dinner." He nodded. "I thought you'd say that. Maybe another time." He didn't argue. The invitation mattered. Accepting it before anything had changed would have turned restraint into forgiveness. I wasn't ready. Neither was Courtney. Jonathan and I had our own work to do first. I began using my workshop again, not for company production, not for emergency repairs. I cleaned my sander and replaced the rough bearing Jonathan had ignored. I sharpened my chisels on the stone he gave me. I built a narrow cabinet for the gardening tools that had been leaning in the corner of the garage. The work was slow. No customer was waiting. No delivery date hung over me. One afternoon, Jonathan stopped by while I was fitting a door. He knocked on the workshop door even though it stood open. "Can I come in?" "Yes." He stepped inside and looked around. The company's outlines had faded from the floor. My assembly table stood in the center again. Barbara's photograph from the memorial rested on the office counter until I decided where it belonged. Jonathan ran a hand along the cabinet door. "Your gap is tight," he said. "It should be. Too tight if the wood moves. It won't." "How do you know?" "I chose the wood." He grinned. We argued about it for 10 minutes. He didn't touch a tool without asking. When he left, he waited outside while I locked the workshop. He had no key, and he didn't ask for one. That became another part of our new pattern. He was welcome. The company was not. The court matter never returned. My attorney closed the file. I kept the dismissal with the petition because I wanted the whole record, not just the page that favored me. The workshop agreement stayed in the locked cabinet. I never tore it up. It reminded me that a clear boundary can sit unused for years, while everyone learns to pretend it isn't there. If you stayed with me this far, leave a comment telling me whether you would have given Jonathan another chance, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. In September, Jonathan arrived carrying a narrow walnut shelf. He had made it at the smaller shop from an offcut too short for a customer cabinet. "I thought you could use this above the garden tool cabinet," he said. "Did you measure the space?" "Last Sunday." "I didn't see you. You were making coffee." He held the shelf against the wall. It fit between 2 studs with less than an inch to spare. I handed him a level. He installed it while I watched. When he finished, he wrote the date in pencil beneath the lower edge, where no one would see it unless they looked. We stepped outside together. He left for home without a box, a bill, or a request. I locked the loading door and walked around to the side entrance. The evening light caught the new shelf through the workshop window. I went inside once more and unwrapped the red handles from the canvas tool roll. I placed Barbara's pruning shears on the shelf Jonathan made, with the workshop door locked behind me.